Okay, we here. Testing.
Yeah,
1, 5, testing.
Sounds kind of scratchy, I guess, but I think I can understand it. Joe Hobo. There's a new name. No, what icon do you see me with now, Claims? Oh, Joe, same thing.
Richard, I'm Janglestick.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
I contacted you as well. If you could message me because you're a target for cloning often enough. Claims, Goran, you guys are also.
What do you mean? Why would I be a target for cloning? What do you mean?
Because people have made a recreation of your account in Hangouts with your icon.
Oh yes, I love them. I love my clones. They are really great. I have over 20.
They have? Where are they going? What are they doing? I've never seen any of these people.
It's usually towards the end of the night when a Hangout gets destroyed by a flood of snipers. They look for people who look like friends of friends to try to get added.
Which icon do you mean? What icon are you seeing right now?
Your usual, not this one.
Okay, I see. Okay, yeah, I've never seen a clone of me before, but I imagine there probably is one.
As I was clarifying for you, you will not be able to find one Israelite on the face of the planet that is a self-identifying Israelite who knows he's an Israelite that will state those words that they will kill or want to kill. They might say they want to kill every white person on earth, but they're not going to say that the Bible predicts that we are going to exterminate every white person on the earth. So for you to try to label us as a genocidal, insane organization is
they want to enslave white people. I mean, I can show you a dozen different videos.
So what? That's a very different thing than fucking killing every white person on the planet. You fucking idiot.
And you're right, it is, but that's my point. Is if you're black and you want to enslave people or kill them or whatever you want to do, you have two choices: black Israelite or Muslim. That was my only point.
That's not the two choices though, because there's not one Israelite on the earth that says they're going to kill every white person on the earth.
All right, I got it. Are they going to kill some?
In self-defense.
Oh, so they're just going to enslave everybody, but only kill the ones in self-defense that try to stop them from being enslaved. So it's self-defense when they come try to enslave me, and I try to defend myself. They call it self-defense to kill me because I don't want to be enslaved. Is that the idea?
No, you don't just like you can't comprehend that simple little verse that I showed you. You can't comprehend.
Well, I'm just asking you, when they come to enslave me, if I say no,
nobody's coming
are they going to kill me in self-defense?
Nobody's coming to enslave you, Richard.
Well, there are plenty of people in New York City running videos telling me.
If you shut up long enough, instead of telling me what I think, I can tell you what I think.
I'm not telling you what you think. I'm telling you what the videos I've seen think. They might not be like you.
I know what they think. I represent every Israelite on the fucking face of the planet. I'm the president of the Israelites. All right. So now the Israelites will never say that. All right. So just because they have a desire to enslave those who enslave them, that's their prerogative. But none of us will say we're gonna just go out hunting and randomly killing anybody on earth.
Right. So I'm asking the same question. Okay, so when they come to enslave me, if they come to enslave me and I put up a fight,
we're not going to hunt people to enslave them, you fucking idiot. That's
not what they say on the videos I've seen. They say all the time they're going to take over, they're going to enslave and kill white people. I can show you some videos if you want to see them.
You can't show me any videos. I've seen every video every Israelite ever created.
Well, I'll post one for you tomorrow. I don't feel like we're looking at
whatever. Yeah, because you can't.
But see, when I post videos, it actually backs up what I say, unlike when you posted earlier about NASA.
You're a fucking liar. Now,
well, we'll see.
As I stated, it just does not happen that way. Now, the way the Bible reads is that we're going to self-determine, and then as we self-determine, white people are going to come invade us and attempt to try to kill us, and then we're going to enslave them and kill whoever is fighting us. We're not going to go around the world hunting anybody.
I see.
Any color.
So if they come to you to try to wreck your party, then you either kill them or enslave them. That's, you know, I don't have a problem with that, frankly. If that's really
all right.
what
So
you
say it
wanna
correctly.
do.
Say it correctly so that you can stop fucking having this imaginary
But that's
conversation.
what I'm saying is that's not what the people in the video I'll show you tomorrow are saying. That's all.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they're like the propaganda wing trying to make you guys look bad or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Maybe they're like white dudes dressed up as black Israelites or something.
Sure. Okay.
When I've spoken to people in Brooklyn and stuff, I definitely get the sense they think there should be a time.
Your sense means
flipping
nothing.
of the resources, you know, like they want their time being the primary resources of the use and feel that of the earth and feel that
That's actually correct.
Well,
right. They feel they deserve to rule the earth and they're God's chosen people, and eventually they're going to all rise up and take over. Blah blah blah. Just more Nazism.
We're not going to take over the country. You fucking faggot.
You're right about that. You're not going to take.
We don't have the desire to take over the country. We're not planning to take over the country. You fucking faggot.
What are your grand plans? Why don't you let us know?
I just said it. I said we're going to self-determine.
Richard,
you're not self-determining now. I mean, aren't you self-determining now? What's the big deal then?
Yeah, Richard, John, please claim. Can you please stop calling people names?
No.
Oh, he likes to do that. Give him a break. But what's your grand plan now? Just so I know.
Wow. I will repeat it again since you're that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not the grand plan. Why? You don't think you're self-determining now?
Well, yeah, of course we are. Yeah, of course we are. Yeah. So what?
Okay, so what's the problem? Then there is no plan. Everybody's self-determining and everybody's happy. Nobody's coming to take your self-determination away. What's the big deal?
What? Yeah, I'm asking you that. What's the big deal?
I don't see any big deal at all. I see black, especially in America, they're self-determining just fine. They don't need nobody's coming to take your self-determination away. In fact, it was the white people in the Abraham Lincoln era that gave you self-determination in America. You know,
that's
self-determining in Africa, all over the place.
That's not self-determination, my man. Self-determination means that you have your own governing structure and your own economy and your own security force.
So do you have that now?
No.
So why aren't the black Israelites getting together and forming their
own
bank?
Doing that now. Don't give me advice.
Oh, okay. So what's the grand plan? Banking? What else?
Everything.
What does that mean? Everything?
Everything. Fucking dumb fuck. Don't you know what goes into a commerce?
Okay, so you're going to have only black Israelite hospitals and only black Israelite banks and that sort of thing?
Dude, we're going to own these places so anybody can use them.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to figure out the plan, dude. How can I know what the plan is unless somebody tells me?
Plan from beginning to end, no problem. We're transparent because Jesus taught transparently.
It's a hangout.
Yeah. Hey, Sandy, I'm glad you made it in.
Everything that we do is not illegal, like you try to.
Sandy and Fatso.
I'm not saying it is. Doesn't sound illegal.
You did say you said we're trying to kill every white person on the fucking face of the planet. That's fucking illegal. You fucking dick sucking.
It is.
Yes.
Hey, Auntie's channel got banned for 90 days.
No way.
He made a shout out video to Vomit drinking some Polish beer, and they fucking banned his shit. Over who fucking knows? I don't know.
That video
it's something he said. It was something he said.
No, it might have been. I'm afraid to say what I think it was because it might be, and they might ban me.
Tell me in DMs.
Okay, I will.
I don't fucking know why. He didn't do nothing wrong.
No, he really didn't.
Who wants to watch someone puke?
No, he did there's someone that's named Puke, I think, right, Star?
Vomit.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And so he did a shout out to him, but I think that he may have said something that might have been considered racist or anti-Semitic or something. Hold on, I'll tell you in PM Star what he said.
Okay.
Yeah, anti-Semitic is worse than anti anything else nowadays.
It's fucked up, dude. YouTube is fucking people over left and right.
Yeah, they are for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people don't. People are afraid of freedom of speech anymore. You know, people want to boycott their products or whatever. Yeah, people are afraid to say what they really mean. The guy got fired from Google for just saying something about women that wasn't even that bad. It wasn't bad at all. And he gets fired. You know, that guy with the Asian name that was an announcer for a football game. They took him off it.
Yeah.
He had a Asian last name, or no, his name was what? Robert Lee, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, Robert E. Lee. Remember that? Robert E. Lee. And because
My brother's name.
he had a Civil War name.
No.
Damn.
And he's Asian. That's the funny thing. It's not like he's a white guy from the South, Yeah, there's some mixed stories about that, though. There's one story that says, he didn't want to do it anyway.
Serious?
Or whatever. Yeah, I am serious.
Yeah.
An Asian guy named Robert. Oh, you're talking.
I forgot I was off mute. My bad.
Maybe that was it, Star. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the only thing it could have been, I think, maybe.
So fucking stupid. Oh well.
I can't believe all the shit we say on Buddy's channel. That thing still exists.
I know, right?
No. It's a miracle.
It is. Yeah. God, Buddy believes in miracles. We'll have to tell him that when you see him again, Denise. It is kind of a miracle.
It's got to be. That's got to be it. I'm trying to get Naomi added, and it's not letting me add. Maybe she's back on my list now.
Denise,
again.
If you don't mind, I would like to add a couple of decent people. They're really good. You can check the list. If there is somebody you don't like, then you can kick him out.
Okay, go ahead.
But
give it a try, Planet. See what happens.
Just ask them to leave, and they'll leave. Because if you kick them, they'll have a hard time coming back. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to wait till the next hangout before they can be, rejoined if they get kicked. I got her added. I forgot. I was trying to add her old name. God, did my computer freeze, or is everybody this quiet?
I was reading something.
No, we are still in shock that our good friend, what's his name again? Claim your inheritance. That he was saying that.
Oh my God, Planet! That's like 20-some people.
Yeah, he was saying white people are, second-class citizens, and black people are superior. So I'm still kind of like in a shock.
Hey, Goran, I don't know these people, so if any of them is trolls, could you take them back out? Because I got a lot of new friends that's coming to my hangouts from other streams I go to, and I don't want to.
All I gotta say, Goran, is if white people are second-class citizens, black people sure do a lot of fucking complaining about how they're not the first-class citizens.
No, I'm just wondering if
they was a biblical response.
Man, we ain't shit if we don't have money, okay? No matter what fucking color.
Let me quickly.
My response was a biblical response.
Just for a second, Denise, you know Ben Schwartz, of course, right?
Yeah.
We are fucking shit stains.
Big Cheese is
underwear of life.
You will like him. Big Cheese is a cool guy. You will like him. Brandon von Alphen is a man. He is an intellectual. He is, I think he is, I'm not sure, but he may be a liberal, but I'm not really sure. Cyprian, you should know. He's a drinker. He's a cool guy. Da Lobster is an old American guy. He's also very, very cool. Deborah, you know Deborah. Then this green soul Sufi, he's also an American.
Francisco.
You may, Richard, especially Richard, he may have a problem with Godless. She's also an intellectual, and she, one can't really fuck with her because she has a big mouth, She has a big mouth. You should really be aware of this. James Richard, I think you guys know him.
I don't
Well,
think
you know what, Denise? Nobody of them is a troll. For example, Nathan Rosenthal, he's
I'm gonna send you something, Denise. Hold on, I'll be right back.
He's
it's okay, Gorm. We'll just we'll just see how it goes. I just don't want any of my new people to be disrespected. You know what I mean?
I know. This is why I only added really. I can count on those people. They won't make any trouble,
Well, I don't want anybody to be disrespected, not just the new people. Anybody.
That's right.
So Django, you said you wish YouTube was more concerned about being sued. What would you sue Google or YouTube for restricting people's speech? I mean, where's the lawsuit? What's it about?
Well, the space within free speech occurs. It's not exactly the same as private property. I see what you mean about, sure, in someone's website. I guess you would put that as for the.
You don't think YouTube is private property?
It's heavily subsidized. It uses, and it also uses the internet that we all share and created together. If YouTube is not the place for it, then there should be some place for it. Just like Facebook is not really the place for what's happening there because it's all owned, contained in with what could.
How does the government subsidize Google? I think Google pays more in taxes than they get back from the government, so I don't see any subsidizing there.
All corporations are subsidized in many ways. It's in the building codes. It's in the use of the trunks that cross the land and go underneath the Atlantic and such. I mean, how are you going to? That's years and years of research and implementation of technology.
So you would be for Google being something like, well, I keep saying Google, but I mean YouTube. It's owned by Google. But you would be for the government stepping in and saying they have to allow pornography or anything that's legal onto their site, even if they don't want to?
They've gone beyond pornography. It's possible to ascertain what is truly offensive that way. Don't you think they've gone way beyond that level of judgment?
What I'm saying is that you're essentially want to force people to allow things on their platform that they may not want. I don't know of any pornography site that's being forced to put up pornography.
Well, all adults you have to experience. You get offended once and you get a chance to leave. I mean, to take down someone's videos,
but you want to
watch their videos.
You want to allow the government to force a private business to put things on to their private business platform that they don't want there.
I think that the largest platform shouldn't be privately owned in this manner, just like Facebook really shouldn't be all Mark Zuckerberg's thing. That's something that we do. The people that are in there in Facebook, they create it themselves. All their time spent wasting liking things and looking at stuff. They're generating content for themselves. And then they have these highly manipulative practices which bring back attention to the things they want, and they create conflict in order to create activity on the site.
But they they agreed to these things when they signed up. They didn't, they knew what the rules were before they started putting the content on there.
It's not true. So people don't read the disclaimers.
that doesn't make any difference. It's not a legal defense to say I didn't read the contract and I'm an idiot. That's not a legal defense.
I think nowadays it is. I think that when you sign on really for a free, well, you can still restrict them. You know, you should be able to have enough control over your computer. For example, when you add an app, it doesn't need to be looking through your contacts lists and your history and have access to your microphone and such.
That's right. It doesn't have to. You can change all those things in the settings.
People aren't aware enough to protect themselves from that. So they need to raise that level of awareness. I mean, come on, boilerplate on all products is so heavily stacked against the common user. There's no way they're going to ever understand that language. Even the actual use of the words, if you look up those words, they're used in a very different way.
Let's keep it on the main focus of the discussion, which is that you want the government to force people to put things on, to allow things on their site they don't want to allow. I mean, but then you sort of backed a little bit off, said that the biggest one should be forced to do that, right?
People understand
the little ones. So the little guy shouldn't be forced to do it, but the big guy should.
People not understanding boilerplate on product and disclaimers and warranties is not irrelevant to the subject. I don't concede that. And I'm saying that YouTube, there should be a thing like YouTube, PeopleTube, which aside from overtly forcing offensive material onto little kids' auto playlists, should essentially let people be people and let them hash it out. Now, the fact that this is currently in the hands of YouTube and Mark Zuckerberg, that's a misstep on our part, of the people's part. We need to rectify that.
Well, see, I think that there are enough places. I guess my argument against that would be if the only thing that existed was YouTube or Facebook, I would probably tend to agree we should start a third thing. But you have all kinds of different platforms. I mean, I go to, like, I went to, I hate to even use it as an example, but I went to Chatterbait one time, and I see these girls with, 6 different social media apps on their deal. So the idea that you can't find that somewhere on the internet, I mean, we're kind of doing that now on YouTube. The only reason that Denise would get banned is if we said a bunch of shit or played copyrighted music, and she kept it to try to make money off of it. So we're kind of in the place you're looking for right now, aren't we?
If the issue is really monetizing always, then I guess so. Is that what happened?
I think that's the case. Yeah. Like Buddy, he plays music, and if he ran porn, if somebody porn bombed him, he wouldn't get a copyright. He wouldn't get a strike because he deletes the hangout when it's over, right?
What I've seen even in smaller hangouts with my friends, like this place, McKennaville, to do with Terrence McKenna, totally unmonetized and small. And someone, I think when they report it, and she had some music on just in the background in the room, and got her ability to do streams taken away just from having this music on occasionally in the background between her speech. But I believe that was also because someone was there bringing attention to it by reporting it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have all these different things. We have Line, we have, WhatsApp, Snapchat. I mean, you guys probably know more of them than I do. Facebook, we've got Hangouts. I'm sure there's probably something for Yahoo. Things like AOL have their own thing. It's not as though and even another example where people could go is the pornography sites all have chat rooms and things like that. So you can find, anywhere you want to talk about virtually any subject you want because it's sort of compartmentalized, right? So, but I don't see why just because you're the biggest that you should get forced into a business model that you don't want. That's my complaint, is that you're basically saying, okay, you built up this really fantastic business, and now I'm going to force you to change it into something else that you never
realize
intended.
With the loss of net neutrality, that what you're describing, that openness is going to be gone.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that just because net neutrality comes, I don't agree with the dire predictions of getting rid of net neutrality.
Well, they have the option to do so and the power. It's nice of them to choose not to for us, but I don't particularly trust.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see the dire predictions coming true at all. But we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, you understand my point, and I'm just wondering why you think it's okay for a private bunch of individuals to build up a really fantastic business, and then the government come along and tell them how they have to run it now. I don't see that as being,
because they are the largest. You can't have a private individual who grows, let's say he takes over a bunch of land and he grows all the wheat in the world. That's not acceptable to me. I don't want to, just because he's got all the land and he managed to pull off growing all this food for everybody. Like you say, because they are the largest, that does make them different.
But there are plenty of other wheat growers. There's Facebook Live and Snapchat and this chat and Line chat and WhatsApp messaging.
How do you find out about them? By going over Google and we're
talking about chatting. We're not talking about search engines right now. We're talking about in-room hangout chatting.
You're talking about saving face in public, which is usually a couple steps before violence.
What?
You're talking about saving face in public. You're talking about publicly humiliating, removing people from the conversation at certain moments. It's right. I don't think it's right to have that kind of power in the hands of these people. That, I do believe in the wisdom of the internet. Certainly in the 70s and the 80s, the people that used to run the UUCP and Usenet News networks,
whatever.
They were smart. What are you talking about, Starscream?
Not you. Go on.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the side chat. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry.
See, there you go. We have somebody in this hangout on a whole nother platform chatting away right now as we speak.
I'm on the same platform.
He's reading the chat here, but
oh, okay. Well, actually, this is two different platforms. We're on Hangouts and YouTube. This is Google Hangouts. YouTube is a division of Google.
I mean, yeah, I guess we're on YouTube right now, but
Yeah.
Why do you have to make everything so difficult all the time, Richard?
Well, I just don't think that the government has any right to step in and tell YouTube how to operate its business unless it's operating it illegally.
Well, that's just the way the world is.
I hope not. I really hope not. I think that my guess would be that the founders of, if that happened to Google, they would probably just shut down Hangouts and wouldn't even do it anymore.
If you want that, move to North Korea. If you want that.
Exactly.
They're all fucking related, dude.
Move to North Korea if you want that.
They're all fucking evil pieces of shit, so.
Pieces of shit. Pieces of shit.
Going down that road of excusing people for not reading their own contracts that they get into, that's another really bad road to go down. Giving everybody an excuse to, oh, I didn't read it, so I didn't know, so it's Google's fault. Come on.
The definitions of the term don't derive from the common dictionary. You have to look them up in the laws and rules and statutes. They don't. If it was all as straightforward as you say, I would believe in it.
I never said it was straightforward. I never said it was straightforward. I said that it's there and it's no excuse because you're too lazy to look up words you don't know in the dictionary.
But they're not in the dictionary. They're not defined in the dictionary. That's not how legal terms work, Richard. You got to look up how you actually find those terms. They have very specific definitions that are decided in court, don't have anything to do with the people, no choice given to you or I or brought before the public.
You're making such a big deal out of it. The only thing you have to do is behave yourself in a normal fashion. It's not that difficult not to break the terms of service of Google.
Not to act normal.
It's really not.
What are you talking about?
And yes, the definitions are found in a dictionary. It's called Black's Law Dictionary. It's not that hard to look them up.
Denise, are you still there? Denise?
I have several law dictionaries. I have the entire set of the decisions on the internet from 95 till about 2013. And it's very hard to look things up, and it's very hard to follow how the laws and terms get redefined.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm here, Star.
I'm literally throwing them out every 2 years.
Sorry.
Binders and binders. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And with all those binders and binders and binders of things I assume you read, wouldn't it have been simpler just to act normally and politely, and you wouldn't have had to have read any of it? Which I know I'm not accusing you of not being normal and polite. I'm just saying that a normal, polite individual can come on any chat they want, and they're not going to be breaking any terms of service.
No, I disagree with that. I don't want to be normal or polite. What I want to do is not hurt other people, and that's about all I need to worry about.
Okay, so if you want that and you think other people want that, maybe you should start up a site for that. But you shouldn't force somebody else who's made a site just because you want a site like that. That's my point.
No, I don't. First of all, YouTube is not acting on their own set of morals and statutes. They're acting out of a rather fascistic response to those who rise up and threaten to sue in order to shut down their commercial venture, right? They're not, I mean, they can't put up a permanent post that say we abide by these morals, because they're reacting to their users, right?
Some say yeah, they're doing a number of things, government regulations, their own ideas, and what you just mentioned. Sure, absolutely. Because they're running a business and they don't want to get boycotted and sued or what have you. Sure.
But there is an equivalent. Just like you can't really run a physical business without interacting with the Earth's resources and all of the rest of society's resources. This is also an information economy. The things on the top of the list matter, and the general understanding of these legal terms matters. Obviously it's not so cut and dry to just act normal and not get booted, right? Because people are getting booted for reasons they don't understand. They're getting surprised by it all the time.
I wouldn't say they're not reasons. Well, give me an example of that so I can understand what you mean.
I see it go by on my list all the time. I got bored of watching it.
So it should be really easy to give me an example.
Well, the only one that comes to mind right now is PewDiePie getting taken up and down, but but he's not the greatest example.
And what did he get taken down for?
Making secondary referential jokes where he says that he was making fun of Nazis, but he's a little caught up in the idea. So
he's basically violating the term of service of what exactly? I'm not quite. I mean, is he using some kind of racism or what? What was the context or what he? I guess what I'm getting at is if you ask PewDiePie, he probably doesn't agree that the internet should be run that way, but I kind of highly doubt that he doesn't know that what he did is something that he could have been banned for. That's, I don't know. I'd have to talk to him, but I don't think he'd be really surprised and say, oh, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to disparage Jews or whatever, right? He'd say, well, I wish the internet wasn't like that, but I guess I knew that I could have been banned for that. That's my guess of what he would say.
Well, I'm a bit tired, but all those people that there's two major science channels that occasionally get taken down for almost no reason whatsoever. I can't remember their names.
Well, there must be a reason. Almost no reason. That's great. Give me the reason that wasn't the almost part.
There's a causality, but there is no justified agency.
What does that? What does that word salad mean? There's a cause, but there's no what?
Agency is of person to person. Like, why is that chair there? Well, it's made of XYZ material, but it's in a way it's there because Richard built it and put it there. That's agency. Agency is the human factor.
So you're saying people are getting kicked out because they didn't do anything? I don't believe that.
No, because they violated a robot's misinterpretation of their protocol. If we have
if it's a misinterpretation, then they get their channel back. It's no big deal.
But they don't, unless they have the money and the presence in order to fight to bring their miss.
Well, give me an example of somebody who's been banned for something like that and asked, to have it put back, and they said no. What you said something about science? What?
Yeah, these guys. We have Aaron Ra. He gets his stuff taken down all the time. Potholer 54. He has multiple instances of violations where they had to fight to resolve it, and it turned out to be absolutely nothing.
Right, and they're still there. And those are because assholes are flagging their sites for no good reason. Sure, I understand that.
Trying to remember the other one because it's just annoying me.
But Aaron Ra's site is still up and running, so that's not a very good example of somebody who's been kicked off YouTube for no reason. It's somebody who's been flagged by idiots who just flag him for no reason. YouTube looks into it and gives him his channel back.
Yeah, but he's both had videos taken down and been stopped from posting, had his channel suspended. There's all these levels, and unless you have the power, right? It's a matter of having the power and money and the subscribers so that they care about you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say that. I think that if it was a single person that was flagged by some douchebag for no good reason, they would also get their channel back. I don't believe these people I see with their YouTube videos claiming, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong at all, and I lost my channel," and I don't believe those people. I don't.
Well, I've been on streams. I've been on streams that shut down, non-monetized streams that just got shut down right around me for no reason anyone could identify at the moment.
Is it possible there was a glitch? I mean, did somebody come on and say we're from Google and we're shutting down your stream, or did it just collapse?
No, that happened to my friend's stream last night. It happened like during a live fucking stream. It just shut his stuff down, and it wasn't even for the stream though. It was for a video he posted, uploaded.
Well, there you go. It was for a reason.
He didn't even fucking do anything.
That's not
enough. He said it was for a
reason.
video.
You got a reason on more than one level there.
Yeah, but like they didn't give him any specific thing, like reasoning, but it could have been like a multiple of things. You know what I mean? So he doesn't really know either why his video wasn't bad. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Almost sounds like you're saying he didn't know which one of the 6 things he did wrong they actually banned him for.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, but was it monetized, Star? Was he making money off it?
Yeah. Well, not that one. No. But he does live.
Well, I guess that gets him involved in those things.
He didn't make shit on that video, you know?
I kind of wish Alex was here because, he has kind of a over-the-top view of being offended and that sort of thing in public. He's kind of the exact opposite of you, Joe, and I think I'm kind of in the middle. I might not sound like it, but I'm kind of in the middle of you and him. Because I'm not, letting my agreements be known to you, but your idea makes sense to me, and I kind of like it. But I would rather see a whole new platform be created, perhaps even owned by the government, and said, look, this is a free-for-all channel. That way nobody has to worry about making money or not making money, and it's wide open, do what you want.
Yeah.
That to me would be fine, but taking, look at all the work these people put into Snapchat or Facebook or whatever it is. I would hate for them to have that work taken away and maybe become unsuccessful. That's sort of the risk you're willing to take with somebody else's really hard work and ingenious business. Is you're taking the risk that it might all collapse and nobody would like it anymore. That would be a horrible disservice to those people.
Your argument sounds very similar to me. The one that allows big pharma to control the prices of the medicines that people, but all the research, all the training and the education, the people that need this motivation, or they're not going to go in. I know some biologists, chemists and stuff, I think they would have the motivation. It's what they love doing. Just like people, now that Elon Musk has his group, those people aren't going to leave because that's the place they go to do that kind of thing. But don't you think that we should have some power to not have these people charge an arm and a leg and literally let people die without their medication? I know I'm stretching the point a little bit, but that's in a society's investment in a in people.
Well, we
in the group.
do. We have some programs for poor people, and the pharmaceutical companies also have subsidies they give people. So it's not all or nothing. Maybe what you're saying is we should have more of that, and that might be true. But for the most part, no. Nobody has a right to somebody else's labor.
But the information that makes up the medicine,
that's somebody else's labor. That's how it was derived, was by somebody else's labor. And I don't have a right to ask that you do your labor for free. So no, I don't. I think the people that invent those medicines have the right to patents. After 7 years, other people can start making generic copies of that X patent. And I think the system works. I think it works well in the sense that it allows for innovation and research and development. And I think if you mandated drugs to be a certain price, you would get less, less good medicine over time. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Well, they're not allowed to reverse engineer these. You'll be, the patent will prevent you from making the generic version. Of course, the generic versions are often incorrect, but that's a different issue. So I'm going to say, so I have no problem if you have a hit, if you have a great site or a great medicine that helps everybody, you should be set for life, and maybe even pass that down to your kids somewhat. But huge amounts of money, I don't know if that is right.
So what's the limitation, and who's going to set it? Who gets to decide how, the way we decide now of how great your product is and how much you should have is generally by going public and letting the general public buy and sell parts of your company. And that determines how much money the populace or the buying public feels you should have. I mean, who's going to decide, other than the free market, how much you should have for your great idea? I mean, who's to say, who's to tell Mark Zuckerberg that he should have less, and why?
Well, wasn't it about 2 years ago they caught that pharmaceutical executive just laying out, they audio taped him laying out specifically the heavily vampiric practices, the ways that they determine the cost of the medicines in different areas and who got what. I
think, are you talking about Martin Skakill or somebody else?
Yeah, I think that's the name.
Well, what he did is he bought companies that had the only drug for certain diseases, and then he jacked the prices up. Now, he's going to jail for one thing, so evidently we don't like that too much. But that's somewhat different. I guess I think we probably have laws, or we should if we don't, against that kind of price gouging. But, I don't know what he did. I think he's probably like Martha Stewart. He's going to jail for lying more so than raising the price of the generic medicines.
So someone is determining. Someone is determining the baseline, and someone is determining what's too much. In that case, right? Because that's what he's now suffering from.
Nah, I think he's going to jail for lying, not for manipulating the price of the drugs. I think he lied to the FBI during the investigation. Same with Martha Stewart. She didn't go to jail for insider trading. She went to jail for lying about insider trading.
Well,
but how much is too much? And, and who decides? I let the free market decide. The free market thinks that the Rubik's Cube is worth, $2.99 and you can sell 1 billion of them, great. If they think that's too expensive, they don't want any tough luck. If Mark Zuckerberg keeps raking in the cash from his invention of Facebook, I say great. I'm glad that we live in a system where you can invent something really fantastic and make piles of money. I want people that are innovative and make great things for us to have piles and piles more money than the average person, because I believe they will find a way to use it better than redistributing it back to a bunch of dumbasses, frankly.
Yeah, but the monopoly is a control over that price and distribution. It's not determined by the free market, right? The monopoly is an aberration that causes an imbalance in the free market. That's why they destroy the monopolies.
Right, monopolies are illegal, so we're not really talking about a monopoly. We're talking about huge businesses where people get really, really wealthy. I'm not talking about things that are illegal. I'm talking about things that are legal. And it may come. I mean, people are now talking that Amazon is a monopoly, which is ridiculous. It has 5% of the retail business. It is smaller than Walmart, and nobody's yelling up and down that Walmart's a monopoly. People look at these great big tech companies, and as far as I'm concerned, it's just jealousy involved. They wish they were those guys, and if they were, they wouldn't be yelling there's too much money involved, you know?
The problem with Walmart is not that it's a monopoly, and they destroy the small business and then often don't replace the function of the small business. And you're saying the small business just should have wised up. And I mean,
first of all, that's not true. The traffic, they sometimes change the small businesses that are around the area where Walmarts are, but all that traffic that Walmart brings with shoppers to Walmart creates small businesses around Walmarts that do very well. It's just not that whole line that, oh, Walmart's destroying all these businesses.
What, you mean the service industry around Walmart? You mean like food and
lots of different. I'd have to go, research it and get you, dig up some links and whatnot. But there are plenty of studies and plenty of areas that show the Walmart does not destroy business. It actually creates things like pizza parlors or whatever, businesses that Walmart is not in the business of, that are posted out, in areas right outside where all that traffic is. Imagine if you live in a town that didn't have a Walmart. Now all these people are driving up and down the road to go to Walmart. What a great location that would be for your, your Apple store or whatever, types of products that Walmart isn't selling. Well, it's not like those areas turn into ghost towns. They end up with strip malls with all kinds of stuff in them.
I think they do sometimes. I think when Walmart pulls out sometimes, but the food and entertainment industry springing up around there isn't enough for me. It would have to be actual resources. I mean, maybe Home Depot would be a better example. I don't like the lack of small places to get tools and resources, and the fact that the level in which Home Depot put their trucking structure together, makes that all much cheaper for them. I feel like if they're on the roads burning rubber and burning gas and taking up space, that there should be a certain portion about that advantageous. Not everything. I'm not nowhere near a communist in the slightest, but some aspect of that distribution channel should be. That's like something we all share and participate in. You can all throw something on the cart as it's headed over to the next town. That used to be kind of the way it would work. You'd have these carts go back and forth between towns.
There is something that we get from that. We get the taxes from the gasoline that they burn and the oil they buy and the revenue that they create. Some of that does go back to the general public. It's called taxes.
No, but I want to see the freedom of the market. I want to, let's say, sell my product. I want to get my ideas out there. I have just as much right to the venue of availability anyway, if not.
So nobody is preventing you from starting up competition against Home Depot if you want to. Home Depot, that's people. You might, if you lived a couple generations ago, you might have said the same thing about Woolworths. It used to be Woolworths was kind of the Walmart monopoly of the world, and then something like Kmart came along and sort of was competition to Woolworths. And I guess one of the problems that you really have, I guess, is that in order to compete against people like Home Depot or even Woolworths or Kmart or Amazon, you need to have a lot of money. And the only place that if you want to do that, you can. And if you have a good enough idea, you can't even get the money from a bank. You're essentially going to be forced to go to the same place that Mark Zuckerberg had to go to, which are venture capitalists. You know, it's not like Mark Zuckerberg financed this whole thing by himself. And if you want to compete against that same type of business, you're going to also have to do it in the same way that he did it, which is get a whole bunch of people with big bags of money to take a risk on you. You know,
from what I understand,
that's the part I can understand that you don't like. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, sure, if we had lots of communication and that people could get together, group their money, and sort of present a corporation of the people that would contend with the private corporations, that would be good. But from what I understand, there's also practices from like Walmart, and I've heard this specifically with Starbucks, where they will buy up all the areas, all the properties that are zoned and have the proper plumbing for coffee shops, and then just keep and hold on to those properties, not allow other people to have coffee shops there.
Dude, that sounds a bit ridiculous. You really think they're buying up every place that's big enough with plumbing? You know how many places that would be?
Commercially zoned? Commercially zoned? There's not that many places that are commercially zoned. You had specific highways and
any business out there can put in plumbing and turn it into something else.
Not in feed people, not in be allowed to interact with the public and all the. You can't just do that anywhere. I know very specifically those things.
I'm saying business.
We have some rights. We don't have other rights. I can sell some products here. I can't sell other products here.
Okay, so I don't know what I think. I think that's a little overblown, frankly, but I could be wrong. It's first I've heard of it, so I can't really comment on it. It sounds like it may have happened in one place, and they make it sound like it happens everywhere. But the truth is that seems to me that you can go virtually anywhere in America and find a place to put a coffee shop if you want to. It's just that Starbucks already has some really good locations. Is the main problem. They got there first. They sort of beat you to the punch.
Yeah, and they'll undermine the coffee sellers. They'll pay more to put people out of business in a certain area to make sure that all the beans go to them.
That's business, dude. When I was in the Navy, there used to be a bunch of us that would loan money, $10 for 15, 20 for 30. I decided one season a season being a month to get paid twice, I decided to loan my money out for free. So I put all the other people out of business. I got all the customers coming back to me, and the third go around, I went back to 10 for 15, 20 for 30, and I took all their customers. That's business. That's how it works. People in the pizza business, oftentimes Domino's will sell pizzas below cost to try to get customers to come, then they'll raise the prices up again. That's just business. That's how it works, dude. It's not as nefarious between just Starbucks or somebody as you make it sound. That's just business, dude. That's the way it works. Car companies do the same thing. Sometimes they'll have zero down on their cars and sell them at great prices, hoping they can hook somebody on, perpetually buying Fords from now on.
Well, there is somewhere in there a baseline to connect with the reality of the resources that nature has and the consumption of society. I know what you mean about there's a problem determining and who's going to make that determination, but the manner in which they use those resources, the trucks and stuff, it's
well, the thing is with things like Home Depot and Walmart, they deal in volume, and they probably use less resources. My guess would be a Home Depot, the way they're so organized and so efficient, that they would use less resources than 5 smaller stores selling the same amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're using a Mack truck. The other guy's using a bunch of smaller trucks, and it's by businesses of scale generally use less resources than businesses that are not scaled up as large. That's one reason why people want to be really big, is it ends up costing less per unit the larger you are.
Mm-hmm.
They have more profit. I was going to say revenue, but I meant profit.
You know, it's when the infrastructure element becomes that large that it's forcing other people out of using that kind of infrastructure, I think it's time to look to, you know, if not return the capability back to the people, then at least subsidize the people so they can use it cheaper.
And where do you see that? I mean, I don't see it. I can send anything I want, DHL, Federal Express. I don't see Amazon using up all of that kind of thing. I don't see Home Depot using up all of anything. What exactly are you referring to?
Well, yeah, I guess Amazon. I don't see people running out of package space in delivery trucks.
Right, so what are you referring to? Where is that a problem? And if it is a problem, by the way, people will create a new business to fill that void. It's never going to be a problem, because the moment it becomes, the supply becomes so low and the demand becomes so high, somebody will step in and create a business to fill that void. That's just never going to happen. It may happen like for a week or a month or a day. You know, they ran out of chicken in England for KFC for some snafu, but it's not going to go on for long periods of time, because somebody will step in and profit from that situation.
Well, how about water? Like, is it Sudan where the water situation is occurring? Is it 3 months away now? The privatization of water has resulted in it.
Yeah, the Sudan is one of the dirtiest, nastiest places, because they have such an economic explosion. So there's probably a good example of a temporary supply and demand imbalance that will inevitably get cured through somebody bringing in water somehow. But yeah, I saw some show. Sudan is basically like the dirtiest place on earth now, because of the economic explosion, and it's just nasty. And there's a lot of problems like that, even when they started drilling or fracking in Dickinson. I lived near that area in Montana, and there were all kinds of shortages of stuff while it was balancing out. You know, they had to shut down McDonald's because they couldn't find any workers for a while. So they're all working at better jobs in the oil fields. You know, those things happen.
So the people they don't just have a right to the water based on their physical animal being born in that area.
No.
Well, I think they do. I think they do have a right to the water and to the earth.
Whose water?
The water wherever you are around. You can't be kicked. It used to be.
Well, I would say they have the right to the water that falls out of the sky, and they can open their mouth and drink it, but they don't necessarily have a right to the water on the lake on my property.
Well, you know, there are actually some laws, you know, like the squatters' laws and stuff. There's if you find someone on your property subsistence living, you can't just kick them off. Actually, I mean, they've modified these laws in some states, but pretty much all the states. But it used to be.
Yeah, for 7 years.
Yeah. Yep. No, but even in the, you know, that Mountain Man case where a guy was caught fishing on someone's property, and he said he had the right to be fishing at least the amount to feed himself. And I feel like that's true. If individuals, just the human body of the animal, can't mess that up. I mean,
who's fish though? I mean, does he have a right to come on my property and fish in, you know, let's say I stock my own pond with some trout for my own personal use. This guy comes along and says, well, I have a right to your trout because I'm a human being. No, I'm sorry, but it's a cold, hard world, and you don't have a right to someone else's labor or someone else's things just because you're a human being.
Well, he came from somewhere, and he's got to go somewhere else. I think that's what the laws involved, is that the person on the land, unfortunately, has to sort of arrange for the person to go somewhere. Vaguely similar laws in England to do with these paths that they sometimes force people to run through that were originally for the army to move. You can see that kind of quintessential English path.
I think you're talking about what's called right of ways.
Yeah.
But I keep asking the same question: whose water, whose fish? I mean, is there any limit? And why does it end at hunting? If I'm hungry, why can't I just decide I don't want a job and go to the grocery store and just start scarfing down in the salad aisle?
You can't, but you can go to the woods and you can start scarfing down squirrels and raccoons. And those are yours. And it's the same thing with water. And it's the same thing with you on your...
What kind of woods? My woods, your woods, the state property woods? And why would we allow people to... Why would we not want to manage those resources for everybody? Why would we just let people go in and scarf down on them? Now, in Alaska, where I live, you can get a subsistence license for, I think back then anyway, it was $5. And you could do that kind of thing. And that's fine. But it's not going to be free, and it's not going to be unmanaged, because people without rules can't behave themselves. And they would go out and they kill all kinds of shit, and then they'll sell it, they'll give it away to their friends, whatever they're going to do. But the people who, it ends up being a problem when you just say, okay, you can just say you're hungry and go out and salmon fish anytime you want. That turns into a problem eventually, unfortunately.
Well, as far as I know, there's many places you can kill things not even without the license and out of season. And if you're there and you cook it and you eat it there, that they won't put you in jail for it.
Well, there are probably no places in America like that, but where I am in Thailand, you don't need a fishing license. You can fish and eat and have, enjoy yourself, but not in America.
Yeah, in the national parklands, you can't be, you have to move your homestead every 2 weeks. It's not illegal though.
No, it's illegal to have a permanent. Yeah, okay, move it every 2 weeks. That's possible, but you're not going to be allowed to hunt there's state hunting laws still apply inside of national parks in states.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a limit to, like you said, you can't be in one place for X amount of time. You also can't be in the park continuously for another X amount, because they're hip to that. If people could just move 5 feet every 2 weeks and stay there for the rest of their life, they're hip to that nonsense too. So you can't be there for more than 60 days, and then you have to leave the whole park for some period of time.
I don't think so. I know a number of people that always live in national parklands. So I do it myself.
Not necessarily legally. A lot of people live in those places without people noticing. There's you go to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska, nobody's going to be looking for you there. They might, if somebody flies by in a helicopter, they might see you or something, but you could get away with that in ANWR for a long period of time before people build cabins there, permanent structures that are, difficult to find, last for years and years and years.
Well, we have 6 Up and 7 Up going through our camps all the time. I don't think that, no, I think you're wrong about that. In the national parks, you can, it used to be that's how you got land in America, is you went out and you homesteaded and you set up and you had to live up to certain things to take care of an area. But if you did, then the land was yours.
That is correct, but that's not today. We don't, we don't have land that we're interested in just giving away anymore.
Yeah, but the laws that protect it, even though they have the effect you're talking about, they are actually environmental. They're based on environmental protection laws. They're not based on having removed the rights of the person to homestead.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow their design. What?
Those original laws are still there for the national park land. Excuse me. But they are
right. When we had homesteading, dude, that was way before the National Park Service was even created by Roosevelt.
Mm. Yeah, but they aren't. They're closer to the original constitutional laws. There's no drinking age. You can be naked if you want. It's not. They've been modified, but I'm saying that modifications, those restrictions you're talking about, be it 2 weeks or 60 days,
Right.
they're based on environmental premise.
Right. Yeah. Well, environmental premise and the fact that the national parks are not designed for people to make as their permanent residency.
I don't know. I guess I'd have to look more. I have looked into the original intent of the creation, but I don't remember if it's.
You don't think the original intent of the creation was to create an area for people to permanently live in, do you?
Well, some are set aside as monument land, and the park land, forest, national forest, right? Those are three separate things. We got national monuments, parks, and forests. And the forests, I believe national forest. You can go there and live if you don't. You need to build naturally sourced wooden structures. There's a number of other limitations on what you can do with the water. There's limitations, and they're environmentally based, but I don't think I think you are allowed to go there, live there.
I would bet a fair chunk of change that it may have been that way one day, but it's not that way now. But I'll look into it and see.
No, I'd be interested in what you find because I spend a fair amount of time out there.
There we go. I'm just going to start on Wiki, and then we'll go to the Sierra Club and places like that.
Great. Oh, we lost claims.
Geography, management, conservation, and livestock raising, watershed. And encourage. Well, here's something. Many ski resorts and summer resorts operate on leased land. Well, that's a little different. That's leased land. That's not squatting.
Leased from the National Service.
Yeah.
Do things like public airport, municipal airports and stuff like that.
Yeah. When I bought a log cabin in Maine one time to go skiing at Sugarloaf. And I think Sugarloaf falls under that national forest category, if I'm not mistaken.
Now, here's the thing. Don't you think that a publicly owned municipal airport is kind of a beautiful thing? I mean, you have all these small, rare, privately owned planes and historical objects and stuff like that would never, ever be able to afford to take off and land at the major airports. Don't you think that should be subsidized and supported for the individual on some level?
No, because... No, not at all. I've actually, the town I lived in, I mentioned in Montana, had that sort of nonsense. And every time I took the plane from a place called Glendive to Billings, I was the only one on the plane. And essentially, the federal government is subsidizing a bunch of nonsense that there's no customers for. So no, I don't find those places in rural areas to be nothing more than a horrible waste of money. And if there's no market for flying people back and forth from the airport, it shouldn't exist. If there is a market to fly people back and forth from the airport, it should be in private hands, not in the government's hands.
Well, I don't know about the flights. I guess that would be different. I guess the flights themselves, but just the land, the fact that a municipal airport is kept there for the people, whether or not they're making commercial money from your flights. I mean, you have a lot of flight training going on there. You have people that are able to have small businesses just because they know how to fly and they can train somebody and they have qualifications.
I would say the same thing, that if it's economically viable, then they should be renting it out. They shouldn't be taking a loss on it. If all the stuff you're talking about is viable, then they should lease the land to those people, and it shouldn't be incumbent on me to pay for somebody else's airport because it's not viable and they can't pay for it themselves. They have no right to my labor so they can have fun flying planes.
But there's enough people in the community that want that to happen, right?
Yeah, of course there are.
Santa
That's
Monica
the problem. That's the problem in America. Everybody wants free shit out of some other guy's pocket, and it's wrong.
No, they just don't want it overwhelmed by an amazing amount of capital from outsiders. I mean, don't you believe in the middle class? Don't you think that the only social structures in the past that have managed in any way to fight back against fascism or poverty have been a stable middle class? Boy, lose your Richard.
Sorry, I had to pee, but if the municipal airport pays for itself, then that's great. If it doesn't pay for itself, it shouldn't be subsidized with other people's labor. It sounds to me, just from the conversations we're having so far, that you're trying to find a whole bunch of explanations in a whole bunch of different areas of how some people are entitled to other people's labor, be it pharmaceuticals, be it squatting on the national forest, be it this, be it that.
How is the forest someone's labor? How is the forest someone else's labor?
It seems to me how is the forest someone else's labor is because squatters on the land are making a mess. They are using the forest, and they shouldn't be using it for free. If it is free and doesn't cost anything, that would be a slightly different story. But the problem is people like that cause fires, they cause all kinds of problems, and they should not be there squatting in the middle of everyone else's forest.
I don't know the people that actually manage to. I don't think the people causing those fires out west have any clue how to live either in the city or the forest. But a human being is not so far. A human being without tools of automation or mass destruction or the ability to do massive chemical damage like mountaintop mining and leaving pools full of horrible chemicals right above schools. The natural man just can't do that much damage. You should be allowed to be out there just like a beaver. You can build things out of naturally sourced wood from the area. You can build shitters and take care of your sanitation. It can be done by a human.
Yeah, it can be done, but if you allow, after looking at this forestry thing, I could be wrong, but if you allowed every Tom, Dick, and Harry, have you ever seen the communities that are kind of off the grid and people live at? They're dirty, nasty places. If you started to allow every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wanted to go live in a national forest the privilege to do that, they would turn into a big fucking mess. They're cutting down trees to keep themselves warm. They're cutting down trees for their house and their hammocks. And before you know it, it's a big clusterfuck of, people who think it's really cool to live in the woods that find out in 6 months after they've torn the place up that it's a lot more difficult than they thought, and they move on. And it's a mess. Somebody has to clean it up.
Well, places like Slab City are a mess. I haven't seen. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I watch the in terms of damaging the forest. No, I haven't seen that.
Right. You make it seem like everybody that goes in the forest is going to be some perfect Grizzly Adams guy,
no,
or Daniel Boone, and it's going to be all great and wonderful.
I'm
That's
really
not
not.
what would happen.
I'm really not. I'm saying you have a right to go fuck it up and make that mistake and learn that lesson. That's what humans do, and you have a right to make it just like people before you made it. Just the fact that
why do people have the right to fuck up other people's land?
Because that's how they got there in the first place. It's not other people's land. It's
owned by everybody it's owned by everybody in the country. So first of all, everybody in the country should decide this policy, not just you or me, and certainly not just the guy who wants to go on the land. So what we really have to find out is what is the actual policy of the Forest Service.
Oh, they aren't exploiting it, and they aren't making capital off it. They're just living within the realm of the damage that a human can do, which compared to a corporation or industrialization is nothing. Tiny compared to what the damage that it's like people worrying about.
Right, you're saying it's okay because they only do a tiny bit of damage, not a lot of damage. I get it.
I'm saying that's the reality of life. It should be taken as the reality of life. The amount of damage that a human animal does with hand tools and just his own mouth and butthole should be acceptable to us, and we just have to deal with it. That's the reality we have to deal with, not the reality of and reality of the free market as well. But I think you should make more room for let's call it the sovereign individual, I guess. Actually, that's probably a terrible term.
Like everybody at the beach pissing in the ocean at the same time, and then calling it ocean pollution or something.
But that's what happens. We're animals just like anything else. I mean, it's like recycling. They get down on us for not recycling, but the amount of, if every human was, I do very much believe in recycling, but compared to the amount of waste that the governments are hiding and what China does and what comes out of the smokestacks, what the individual humans do is just tiny. It's a red herring to get us all feel guilty about recycling. Not that I don't recycle, I do quite a lot. Well, Richard, which pages did you find relevant on Wikipedia to the?
Pretty much none yet, but I'm utilizing the pages just to learn a bunch of kind of stuff that doesn't have really to do what we're talking about. But right now I'm on the Forest Service, the Forestry Service page that down to the overview section and reading down, we'll see. But I'm pretty sure none of it's going to have the rules of the forestry land. But I'm just going to read up about the forestry. I'm going to read everything I can until I run into it about the the U.S. Forest Service as I go. It's kind of interesting. The number. I'm going to go back and find it. The number of private businesses, like 14,000 or something. Let me find it. Yeah, 14,077 recreation sites. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, those official recreation sites definitely they have some facilities supplied, and they should have rules about. I mean, they can be trashed, they can be overused. That's a little different than the national forest.
You know what an HA is? Are they talking about a hectare?
Yeah, hectares.
Really? We measure stuff in hectares in America still? Huh. Is HA the abbreviation for hectare?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we do measure it then. They said individual sites range from 47 to 22,500 HA in size. So I'm assuming that's a hectare. Huh.
I think it has to do with measuring, what's it called in maps? The up and down aspect in maps.
Well, here's a kink in then the action too. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different regions that are possibly, self-controlled kind of thing. So you know, the northern region might have different rules than the southwestern region, you know what I mean? Or not, who knows?
Yeah, well, like the pot smoking laws end up applying over national park land as well. So when they have their big hippie gatherings down in the south, you get a lot of hippies busted for smoking weed on national park land. When they happen up north, you don't. Or when you happen, you know, wherever it's been legalized. So those laws spread by default over the land.
Well, if you're on, okay, they don't because they don't feel like busting them, or they don't because you think they couldn't bust them on national land.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the when it gets legalized, it gets applied. Like I know that in national park land in North Carolina, for example, is one of the worst possible places to get busted for weed.
I'm going to scan some of this. Well, they must have a use section. I didn't even bother to look at the top to see use. State controversies. Well, you'd think they have a use section.
Often these laws, they come in on top, Richard, either as kind of the environmental reason, or I'll call it an excuse, or even for personal safety. Like in a number of places when they want to clean people out, they have laws that you're not allowed to be on the parkland, say in the height of January, February. It's extra fines if you're found there because, you know, you're putting yourself in danger. And if you were to get in trouble, the costs to get you out would be exorbitant compared to October or March. You know.
Right. I could see that would make sense.
It does make sense, but it ended up being an indirect way to deal with and get all the people that were living there off it, the vast majority of which had no problem keeping themselves alive and warm like any other human animal.
Right, exactly. We don't, I mean, if we come up, I mean, I'm not against that. We don't want people camping out permanently on land that's not designed for that. I don't see.
I do, and designed for it.
Oh, intended for it is what I mean. I don't think that, I think those things were set aside to be, you know, looked at and used and enjoy the beauty by everybody, not designed so that you could have a bunch of squatters fucking up even a small, tiny section. And I mean, I know to you, it's like, oh, there's probably not going to be that many people that do it. They're just going to put a pinprick on it and nobody will notice. But that kind of policy always ends up escalating into a problem. And now, of course, they're going to come along and find some reason to evict the tent city eventually. Absolutely.
A tent city or a slab city is different. And in the forests, I don't think you'll find an example of that ever having happened. You know, the amount of damage that gets done is within the realm of a normal animal. And if you want to know what does the real damage, squatters didn't bring Japanese knotweed. Squatters didn't bring the pine boll weevil that rots out the trees and such. Or, you know, those are the real damage done by well, it's international trade, I guess, is what that happened, you know.
We don't know it came from international trade. It could have come from tourism.
But whatever, it wasn't monkeys trying to stay alive based on what nature gave them.
Here we go.
A place called America's Public Lands Explained, DOI.gov.
What was the title of that?
I'll paste it. Side.
Oh, just tell me, because I'm reading this other stuff. What did you just say?
If you search on America's Public Lands Explained, and it's on DOI.gov.
What does DOI stand for? DO, Department?
Interior.
Interior.
which I think used to be the body that was the last to decide if we went to the war, but I don't think that's true anymore.
So here's kind of two things too, is that the states have jurisdiction as well. It's a multi-jurisdictional thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, less so in the territories, but sure. Or what were once the territories. Unfortunately, in a lot of the areas where they have those, we still have those reduced rights. The cops have the additional rights to come kick your ass. So it sort of gets evened out.
I mean, I guess I almost did it, but I went to this site instead, is to Google trespassing on U.S. United States forests, and then something might come up to give you the legality of what exactly trespassing would be on the U.S. Forest Service land.
From Cornell, 1863 and 163.29.
Huh?
Those are the codes you're talking about? I Googled what you said.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, post a link. That's the simple way to figure it out. It just now dawned on me what I could do.
Well, I don't know if these are.
Right, well, go just post a link. I'll look at them myself. You don't need to look at them if you don't want to. You're in the back? Yeah, you're in the Google Hangout thing. I can just Google it myself, I suppose.
Which one?
Where are you posting it in where it says Jerusalem, aka Denise's room?
Here's the other. Yep.
Oh, okay, Cornell. Yeah. Okay.
And I guess I'll get the other major one that they mention, even though I haven't read it yet. Yeah, the 18s. Those are the ones I'm aware of. The 16.
Well, that says a whole bunch of nothing there. I mean, fuck. Well, we got to look through all the statutes, the amended publication, Title 33. That's not exactly what I was hoping for, I should say. That's how it always starts. I've been through plenty of this kind of stuff before. You got to read it all. Okay.
163.29 is about the Indian owners. Trespassers will be liable for civil penalties and damage to the enforcement agency and the beneficial Indian owners, and will be subject to prosecution. Gets very complicated when you mix in the American Indian aspect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here we go. Is this, yeah, this 163.
Now, it's one thing I heard. That first one, the 18 codes, goes on national forest land while it's closed to the public. So I've heard that they shut down large areas and only researchers are allowed to go there. Have you heard that?
I can believe that, sure.
So, I mean, I believe that should be up for review by the people. If scientists have also reported that there's, lands kept closed that way that no longer need to be closed that way.
Did you do a show about this or something, Joe?
No, I camp a lot.
So the one thing that we can be pretty clear on out of this is that trespassing, you can trespass on forestry land, right? We at least determined that.
It's environment. It's when I believe that's the influence of the environmental laws again, not supposedly because of your rights. So they're getting around actually assaulting your rights directly.
Well, you don't have a right to go on to other people's land. So I don't know why you would think you have a right to go on land that's owned by the Forestry Service just because that land is also owned by all of the people of the country. It's like saying that you have a right to go sit inside of the the federal fire department office or something. It's just not true. It's not your place to be. Just because it's paid for by the public and owned by the public doesn't mean that any Tom, Dick, and Harry has the right to camp out
there. I think it does. And that it's not.
So you think that in my example of the federal fire department, people should be allowed to go camp out in the lobby of a federal fire department building? Really?
No, but in the middle of the winter, the fire department's forced to take you in, and they have to put you somewhere.
Why?
Can't you throw you back out in the snow?
Why should the fire department be forced to take you in? Their job is to put out fires, not take in the homeless, for fuck's sakes.
Well, I that's different than the forest, but I mean the fire station. But I know that's. I'm not saying I support it, but I know that that's true. You can't. There are laws against leaving people out in the cold, and then they have to. They provide the people with transport to somewhere else. They can kick them out, but not back out into the snow.
You're out of your mind, dude. Homeless people walk into the fire department. They're going to say, there's the fucking door. Walk out the same way you walked in. Get the fuck out of here.
No, they call the cops.
99% of the places in America.
Yeah, no, you're partially right. They call the police and you get taken to jail and you get housed in jail for X amount of time.
No, most of the time they're not going to call the cops on you just because you tried to get warm in the fire station. They're just going to tell you to leave and go about your business.
If you can do that, if you're a menace, they can't put drunk people out in the snow. There's a number of laws about that.
Well, of course, they can't put people that can't take care of themselves out. We're just talking about some douchebag who thinks he has a right to sit inside of a government building, which they don't anymore. Then you have a right to sit on a government forest. You don't have that right.
It's pretty hard to tell a douchebag from an incapable person. I mean, that's
not really. It's really not that hard. So, I guess I just click that.
But let's talk about these re-education centers.
Well, here we go. We never even clicked it, and we should have. Trespass means the removal of forest products from or damaging forest products on. So without permission, your idea you can cut down wood and build your house and build all that, that would be trespassing on
not
forest
green
land.
That means green trees, Richard. You can cut down timber.
No, it said forest products. That could be anything made out of wood if they wanted to. There may be a court case that would define that more specifically. But anyway, let me read the whole thing. On Indian forest land, except when authorized by law and applicable federal or tribal regulations. Trespass can include any damage to forest resources on Indian forest land resulting from activities under contracts or permits from fire. Now, I'm guessing that was trespass in the Indian part. I'm guessing that trespass in the non-Indian part hopefully will say something different. No.
Where are you looking? But I know for a fact you're absolutely allowed to build out of timber on the lands. People do. They go in there. For gatherings, they build pretty amazing structures for 2 weeks, and then they take them apart.
I've seen people build some of those. I don't know what you call them. They kind of look like whatever. What part? I'm just clicking the word trespass, and it came up with that 'cause it was bold and blue on mine.
On the Cornell site?
Yeah.
I don't have that.
And it keeps coming up with the exact same thing on all the trespasses. Yes. Maybe I'll scroll down a little further.
I think once you get into the 163 area, it's going to be all Native American oriented. Yeah, see, here's a definition of the word trespass that you would have to know in the context of Indian forest is how it's used in this.
Right. That's what I just read.
Yeah.
But that one's only talking about the Indian thing.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if maybe the trespass that they're going to use to kick you out. Well, no, because those would be, I'm thinking maybe they use the state definition of trespass, but that's probably not true because they're federal employees and they probably wouldn't do that.
The state's heavily limited in their ability. They can really only go in there if they're looking for somebody.
Right.
And then they can do all kinds of things once they're in there. But I mean, you can absolutely build out of timber. I'm not sure where you're going to find the definition, but I've had many interactions with federal park officials where they come and check stuff out, and many experiences with people building everything from yurts and teepees to entire theater stages, multi-level stuff. They just go out there and bust themselves out, work really hard, build it, use it for 2 weeks, and then take it down. And the cops are all up in it, 7 Up. In fact, we don't even have to sign a permit. They can't force us to sign a permit. And they try to get us to sign a permit. They literally block the entrances to the forests and try to make people identify a leader. And you just don't go around them, get taken to jail for a couple days and get released on nothing because they have no premise and the land is yours. So you have to use it within the environmental limitations, but you're not removing the products. You're not profiting off the nature of the land, but you're allowed to be there. And if without this environmental restriction of the 2 weeks and such, you'd be allowed to live there. And of course people do, they go up and down like the Appalachian Trail constantly.
Yeah, I've been up and down the Appalachian Trail for sure. I mean, people don't really live on the Appalachian Trail. I would dispute that.
I know people that are there now. How long ago has it been since you did it? I mean, they hide. They don't live in those lean-tos and shelters. There's definitely a lot of people living out there. Maybe you just didn't run into them.
Well, it depends on your definition of a lot, I guess.
Yeah, they're living pretty scrubby and rough. Yeah.
Opposite stance of all reality. It's so funny. He takes every point and says, "No, that's not true."
It's doing fine. I fight with cops about these issues, so I'd rather fight with Richard now than be some of the things I've gotten into with the forest rangers and policemen and everything.
Oh, here we go. Well, no, it's probably not Indian tribe. See, I'm getting stuck on this Cornell thing, but this isn't.
Like I was in jail
This is all tribal stuff. This whole section that we found, the 163.29, is subpart B. I wonder if we can get to subpart A somehow here. Just start at 163.
Oh, I see.
Okay, here we go. General positions, forest management and operations. Now I just backed up on that top where it gives the whole thing, Title 25, Chapter 1, blah, blah, blah. I clicked one notch back. Now I've got general provisions, forestry management and operations, forestry education, recruitment and training, Alaska Native Technical Program, cooperative agreement. I'm guessing it's in general provisions. Here we go. Definitions. Perfect. Now I know what I'm looking Advance deposit, advance payment, Alaska Native, authorized, B, C, where are we at? What are we looking for? Trespassing.
Well, I should tell you that unless they show the year in which they made some of these changes, I'm going to even disagree with some of this stuff, even if they state that's the code, because it was once explicitly stated that you did not have to have a permit and that no one had to be identified, you know, and then they changed the laws, but people are still, as activists, making a show of not getting permits in order to do these things, you know, and I support them.
Well, this general thing is all about Indian stuff and gives the same definition that we had before. So I'm wondering why it's so Indian centric. You know what I mean? It seems like this is all.
Maybe that's what Title 25 is. Let's do the same thing on the 18. Look on the first one we found, the 1863. We can go backwards to Chapter 9, Part 1, Title 18. Oh, that's criminal.
Yeah, you're right. Title 25 is Indians.
Title 18 is trespass. Oh, that's the same definition again.
Yeah.
Yeah, crimes on national forest land. Try going back to the 18s. Then go up the chain, as you said.
Go back to the 163 deal.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back into the chat room to get it because I'm kind of lost. I got myself lost on the deal. 163 or no. 18s.
Yeah, and then click on Part 1. General provisions. Child support.
I think that's going to be just regular. I don't think that's the problem with this is this isn't forestry centric. This is just general. But what you said, you made some mention of something in this list itself. What was that?
Oh, I'm looking in Title 18, Part 1, and you're saying this is just general crime codes.
Principles after the fact. You see what I mean? This is just general kind of stuff about, you know, felonies and the United States define.
Try Chapter 91, Code Chapter 91-Public Lands.
Code Chapter 9. Mine only goes to 27. How'd you get to 91?
I don't know. Let's see. I'll put that as well.
I'm on 18, Part 1, Chapter 1.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the. When I went to 1863, it goes U.S. Code, Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 91. To 1863 is a specific part of Chapter 91, but I posted it.
Okay.
In the chats.
Oh, nice. Where? I don't see it. Maybe it hasn't come up. Okay, I see it now. Nice. Okay, 18-1-91. Public lands. Here we go. Timber, trees, timber, fires, fences. What part did you say to go to? Oh, trespass on that national forest lands, maybe? Is that what you meant?
Sure. Well, all that stuff. I mean, timber removed or transported, trees cut or injured, it all pertains, I think. Bids at land sales. Surveys interrupted.
Yeah, I think we already saw this somewhere, didn't we? This is where, and this is where I ended up clicking on. So I'm going to start by clicking 63, Statute 95. See those things on the bottom? I think we have to read all those to figure out what, the permission for land was closed, public pursuant to lawful regulation. No, it goes on national law. It is closed to the public. No, this is just going to be. I want to go back one. I want to find the use, like their policy on who can use what, when, where, and how. That's what we need to look for, because anybody that violates that is, there may not be trespassing. It may be, like you said, that you just have to follow all these little different rules.
My understanding is that they implemented trespassing laws rather obliquely by making them environmental protection laws. Like here in the have like the inability to, if you're going to be in the forest, you probably have to learn how to take pitch out of trees, and you're not allowed to, where's this? And that's this 91 section. Whoever cuts, chips, chops, or boxes any tree upon any lands. I
just went there to the same thing as you. I wanted to see about
but you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to chip, cut, and box, but just not for the purposes of obtaining pitch or turpentine. Not that I've ever done that.
Well, that's not what mine says. Mine says whoever unlawfully cuts or wantonly injures or destroys any tree growing, standing, or being upon any land of the United States, which in pursuance of law has been reserved or purchased by the United States for any public use, or upon any Indian reservation, doesn't matter, or lands belonging to or occupied by Indians, or any Indian allotment or the title of government, or while being States, shall be fined or imprisoned for 1 year or both. So it's illegal to unlawfully cut, injure, or destroy any tree growing or standing, meaning I guess that you could take trees that are not standing and are not growing, like, deadfall or whatever you want to call it.
That's what timber is.
Cutting a tree, cutting in, and I kind of knew this already, cutting any tree for any reason is against the rules if you don't have permission. You can't just go in there and cut down trees to build a house like you think.
What
I'm on
18
U.S. Code 1853.
Yep. Oh, that's. Well, they see us do it all the time. We cut dead, standing trees right in front of the Federal Park Service.
Well, they're giving you implied consent by not complaining about it.
No, I don't know. I mean, there must be something to this, because I mean, even regular campers, when they go in, you go in and you're not just going to find complete deadfall. You're going to find timber that's still standing. And
this is I guess what I'd say is this is an example of selective enforcement. They're going to let people do it until some guy's an asshole, and then they're going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, section, you violated section 1853. Here's your ticket." You know what I mean? There's probably a number of things, and the other thing is unlawfully. It has to be, you have to cut it unlawfully. So, like you said, it may be if you're using hand tools, then you're not doing it unlawfully, or, it gets into this stuff at the bottom. You have to read all that crap too, and it's not, this one, the first one wouldn't go, second one, read it online, like this page, I don't really feel like doing this anymore.
Well, I mean, you'll agree that there was once a definition of a functional sovereign individual, which was put throughout the land, right? And then now, when we're born into a certain state, where there's a series of laws and stuff that our parents sign in the birth certificate. So that
when was there a sovereign individual? You mean in America?
It's in the Declaration of the references to the sovereign citizen, and then now that the states on your birth license, whatever it's called, your certificate. You sign
What,
away that. You
what,
sign
what
away that right.
exactly in the, hold, back up. What you're saying in the Declaration of Independence, it mentions sovereignty?
Yeah.
Well, that's not, the Declaration of Independence isn't law. It's a declaration against England. It doesn't say, we're saying that we're a sovereign nation away from England. It's not saying individuals are sovereign in the 13 colonies.
Yeah, that's right. It's against monarchs and fascists.
So I guess what I'm saying is, no, I don't agree that, I don't know what happened really before the 13 colonies were formed, but I don't think there was ever a time when New York, for example, is a sovereign colony, that individuals within that colony could say, I'm sovereign and make up my own laws. I don't think there was a time like that. Timber box, timber set afire, fires unattended. They got rules for everything, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bids at land sales, fires, trespass. Already seen that one too many times already. Yeah. Yeah, oftentimes like the good laws that help you out are found, because I researched, like I read all of every single law in the states that I live in, and these little things to the side, that's where all the good shit is, like what some people call loopholes. You find those in the little bottom part where it says refer to section blah blah blah. That's where all the good shit is. The obvious shit you read is kind of obvious, and it's like, yeah, okay, no big deal. But just to give you an example, I don't like having a driver. I don't have a driver's license, right? In Montana, I looked through to find an excuse that I could use to not be able to have a driver's license. And so, in the one little, refer to this section that nobody notices, it says that if you've ever had a driver's license, and if you're qualified to have a driver's license, but you just didn't feel like renewing it, you're guilty of driving without a license. However, you're exempt from the penalty for driving without a license. So it's like the cops can arrest you, but the judge can't do anything about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah.
I never got pulled over and had to use that section. But boy, I almost wanted them to pull me over just because I knew the judge wouldn't know about that section either, and I'd surprise her,
Yeah, I know Montana is one of the places that it still holds some semblance of its original territorial laws, which entail a lot more freedom. And you don't accept that generally all the states had that, like before we had to, with all this bullcrap with the signing of the uppercase last name on the birth certificate.
That has nothing. There's no birth certificate thing. No, I don't believe in any of that crap, dude. What I would say is that we had days long before America, before we had statutory law. There was a time when there was not statutory law, but that goes way back, even before America. But no, there was no time in America where you could say, I'm a sovereign citizen and your laws don't apply to me. That day never existed. No.
The concept of the fight for the sovereign citizen was introduced later, definitely, but
on spurious nonsense grounds. So
it's fighting back against all those statutes, like you're talking about. All the there was a time in America where you could go. I mean, you don't think the 40 acres and a mule is just.
You can get your 40 acres and a mule. But there were generally, what you're talking about is a time when they were trying to settle a land, and there was no colony, there was no state. There were territories, And the people in those territories kind of made up their own rules until they decided to become states. But even in those territories, you know, you're pretty much subject to whatever the sheriff might have wanted. You know what I mean? And then his deputies and all that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what I guess it's sovereign. I need to understand what I would call it, but there is still quite a lot of support for the less statutory law. Like you mentioned, sheriffs in some areas, the sheriff still fights and will actually have conflict with the state police over the rights of his citizens, and the sheriff will be the one standing up for the rights of the locals, the state.
And you know why we have these things, don't you? Because when we didn't, the problem is the people who like that idea of sovereignty the most are generally the most irresponsible with the least resources to pay for their damage. And what we found over time is that the idea of just living in a world where we don't have statutes to prevent problems and people just pay the bill when they cause damage, the people that cause the most damage never had enough money to pay for all the damage they caused. So that's why we started with these regulations, you know, where there's examples of people burning down whole cities with bad wiring. So we come up with building codes and that sort of thing. You know, it all comes from that one bad apple spoiling the bunch until people, you know, they say, hey, we just can't have this anymore. You know, it's fine. Drunk drivers are fine when you first have automobiles and there's only 1 or 2 accidents. But after, you know, there's enough drunk drivers killing enough people they can't replace, you end up with statutes saying that nobody can drive drunk ever, not just that you have to pay for your damage when you get in an accident.
I agree with you. There should be areas zoned. You have commercial areas, you have central city areas, just like in residential areas, you're not allowed to go put up advertising and signs and stuff like that. But I don't know about where are the individuals who are not industrializing or capitalizing that did so much damage, that caused so many fires compared to what nature could have. I mean, you know, they're reevaluating this whole thing in California, right?
The example I'm talking about, I believe, happened in Chicago. I think there was. I think it might even be called the Great Chicago Fire. If I remember.
Yeah, but that's in that. It's in one of those zoned areas that I'm talking about. I'm looking for an example where this damage occurred in the national parkland. I mean, you know, they're reconsidering all the fires in California, right? They're thinking that the fires in California are actually the result of not enough burning.
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. Yeah.
So where are the individuals? Where is the single human without industrial?
I was completely unrelated to the parks. I wasn't relating that to the forest at all. I was just in general. I'm saying in general, the reason that we have statutes is because enough people cause trouble so many times that we create a prevention statute to keep people from fucking shit up. That's why we have speed limits. Too many people were speeding and caused accidents, you know?
So
that's what destroyed the sovereign citizen.
Right.
Is that people couldn't behave themselves without rules, and the sovereign citizen got destroyed in the process.
So if people were prevented from industrialization and from, you know, I was looking for an example of someone destroying the forest that way, you know, like a monkey with hand tools causing so much damage that he does really need to be prevented from going out there and doing that.
Are you thinking that in the whole history of the national forest, there's never been anyone living in the national forest that caused a huge forest fire? Come on, of course there has been.
Yeah.
Accidentally, I'm sure, or, you know, I'm talking about accidents, not intentional arson.
Mm-hmm.
But surely someone has caused, but I'm not even sure that would be, you know, I kind of agree with you. That's not necessarily great damage. That actually helps the forest in an odd way, but it no doubt also burned down a lot of, you know, a number of buildings that, you know, shouldn't have been burned down. I'm sure if we found some list of you know, all the forest fires and all of the U.S. Forest Service history, we'd find plenty of examples of people starting fires.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an interesting issue. I mean, I get your point that it's land that, you know, belongs to everybody. So why shouldn't, you know, I be able to go out and camp out there for the rest of my life if I want to? But I personally don't think that's a good policy. I mean, I guess in a way, I think people like you might see on that show where they bounce around with different people that live out in the woods, if there were only a few people doing it, it'll be just fine. But if they said, okay, everybody that wants to can go live in the woods, then you might have 100,000 people going out, and then it would get destroyed. So
I agree. There may be somewhere you need to hold them accountable, but I'm also saying, Richard, is comparing to the damage that corporations and governments have done to the resources that were supposed to be available to us.
Two wrongs don't. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but it's like 100,000th of a wrong compared to a mega wrong. You know, compared to massive permanent destruction. A human being can't build enough poop in a hole to forever damage that environment. An industrial corporation can, in a single few hours, you know, blow up and separate chemicals and leave heavy metals concentrated. Humans just can't do that.
The solution is to make sure that the corporations do as little damage as possible. The solution is not to say, well, these people do less damage, therefore it's okay.
It's a different type of damage. It's a qualitatively different type of damage. You know,
you're looking at good damage. You're imagining it as all these people living in there are, you know, the kind of people that would never leave any trash. They would never do any damage.
Oh, sure they would.
It's going to be just fine.
No, they can leave wood trash. You can't bring, you know, plastic and other things.
In your mind, they're all these perfect little campers. When in fact, you go into Forestry Service land and see where people live, and it looks pretty much just like some squalid tent city near the ghetto. You know, I'm sure you've seen videos of forest people going in and looking at the marijuana farms and things like that. We know they're not all perfect little campers, dude.
The marijuana farms doesn't. I mean,
they're leaving their Spam cans around and their trash and their plastic and their cigarette butts and all this kind of stuff. They're not these wholesome vegans that are keeping everything just for, and I'm not, maybe the people there now are, but if you opened it up to everybody, you would have a lot of that kind of destruction that I'm talking about. That's why we don't let it get out of control. So we don't want to have to clean that shit up. We know how people behave. That's why we don't, I don't think anyway, we allow people to live in the forest for permanently as long as they move every 2 weeks. That just seems ridiculous to me.
Oh, I think they should not even have to move every 2 weeks. But I mean, in the case of a pot plant, I mean, I'm sort of conflicted on that, because the pot plant will definitely go away. It'll just go back into the soil, right? There's no permanent damage. At the same time, if someone's profiting, they shouldn't, you know, they've got these grows, and half the time if you stumble across them, they're going to shoot you. You know, and I don't have any illusions about the messy kids. I mean, I create and work these communities, and that's our constant battle, is you take clueless city kids and they make every mistake in the book. But that's to me, that's like the prime initiation of the human animal. That's what we get to find out. You know, to me, it's unnatural to be raised in the city and so completely under the state and civil codes. You know, that's the artificial environment. So even if there is a damage or a downside, and yes, not everybody has leather and wood belongings and they leave metal and plastic around, it's true.
And you also think that they should be able to hunt and fish and take any of the resources they want out of the woods too, right?
No, there has to be some awareness of how much you're depreciating a certain animal. But I mean, definitely in some areas, like in the northern forests of New Jersey, you could kill all the deer day and night. You're going to barely make a dent. I mean, they would love people to. They would really like to, just even to save the money on the damage done to cars.
So shouldn't they then just abide by the hunting regulations? Because that's the people that decide how many animals ought to be killed or not.
Yeah, but they can't get enough people to kill. I mean, they're
Well, if that's the case, it must be open season on deer all year long, and then they can hunt whatever they want, right?
It's a long season there for human purposes. It's not all year, I don't think, and I still don't think you can do it during. That's changes from place to place, but I mean, you can tell if you're depleting an area down to the point where it won't come back, and you can also have farm.
Right, we can, and that's why we have the hunting, and sorry, I forget what they're called for the moment, but those are the people that decide that. So shouldn't the people living free on the land abide by the professional experts that count the animals and estimate how many can be killed and give out the hunting permits, right?
They should abide by the evidence those appointed people present, yes?
Yeah, okay, well, good. At least we agree on that. Trying to find some path of agreement here, I guess. But, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't, all I foresee is if, you put up a big sign in the country and said, okay, all the Forest Service areas are now open and you can go live there for free, then it would turn, it would just turn into a big clusterfuck. And my guess would be that the people that that do this kind of thing are probably just being allowed to do it because it's not out of control. But the moment it did get out of control, they'd say, okay, section 42(3) whatever says you can't be here and all of you have to go. And now we're going to have to start enforcing the rule.
I don't think they're not definitely not allowed to be there. There are some people that know a whole lot more about the forest codes than me, and they argue their cases to the police and in courts. Some of them go to jail on purpose. But the people you're talking about, that do that kind of stuff, the extreme abuses, they will do that anyway. I mean, those people that would do that in the forest are probably not too far off from the people that would just come and do that in your backyard on private property or something. Well,
what I'm saying is that if you advertised it so that all of America knew they could do that, you would just it would turn into a clusterfuck. There would be a lot of people going, not like the people that you're talking about. I'm talking about well-intentioned people. And before you knew it, the whole forest area would be filled up with cabins and it would be a completely different look. The intention of it is to preserve the beauty while taking a limited amount of resources out in a multiple use. If you turn that into a whole bunch of cabins all over the forest, you no longer have that. Then the tourists can't enjoy it and look at it and walk through it because there are cabins everywhere. That's kind of what I'm...
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the place is defined as parks and monuments, should be preserved in that way, and to have pristine land has its own rights, which are equal to.
So, what do you think is different?
Natural humans.
What do you think is different? Because one of it is called forest, and I forget what the other one, park. Why do you think that the forests are under a different set of rules than the parks? I mean, I realize they're called two different things.
Just from the statutes I've experienced, and I can find the definitions are out there. They're the parks are more preserved and they have these limitations. The forest is forest land. You are in a way a part of the forest. You have more of those rights on the forest.
I see. Okay. So do you know people that live there year round?
Yeah.
In what area?
Up and down the Appalachian Trail, Green Mountains, White Mountains.
Okay.
Even some people in Connecticut, but those guys are pretty hardcore. I'd say they're really more urban hiders.
Yeah, my initials are carved into the corner of most cabins in Vermont and Maine. Up in the corner of the eaves, you will see my initials.
RG?
RRG.
2 R's and a G?
Yep.
Oh shit! All right, I'll take. You ever do any of those hippie things up there, like Bread and Puppet Theater or any of that stuff? Or?
No, not for me.
I'm not particularly into hippies, but the ones that did manage to survive the '60s are pretty interesting.
So I'm thinking about the Appalachian Trail, and the Appalachian, those like the people that walk up and down the trail that, you know, will charge you to be in the cabins and all that kind of thing. Those people are generally like UVM kids in Vermont, but would they be because like the Long Trail thing is like a state of Vermont, or is it all federal? I don't really remember.
I think the only significant gap of the AP, I know in Massachusetts it's pretty tight, because technically Massachusetts doesn't have any national forest. It has a tiny little national park that's literally a monument, like a token area. So I believe those rights are primarily broken, but people do still manage to live there. But you know, what's that, like Mount Greylock, I think it is, or something like that, out there in the west, the Berkshires down to the Catskills.
Yeah, I'm super tired. I'm not looking through this stuff anymore, but yeah, I'll look into this when I'm, you know, like fresh in the morning kind of thing. I was tired when we first started talking about it. I thought it might be a little easier, but the truth is, the harder it is to find what I'm looking for, the more I'm going to believe what you're saying, because you know what I mean? If it was the way I think it should be, they'd have those rules right up there, right in your face immediately, so you would know. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, they would apply directly to the rights of the person rather than restrictions based on environmental.
Right.
Which I actually do believe in, of course, to some degree.
What don't you agree? Like, what are some of the environmental laws that have sort of fucked your friends out of a night's camping or whatever? I don't put you on the spot. You think you'll probably think of it later, and next time we talk, maybe you can tell me. I can imagine they have some pretty obscure kind of nonsense things they pull out of their ass once in a while.
Oh,
or maybe not.
Well, they really get us hard on parking after a while. Once you have an obvious buildup of cars near one of the entrances, they'll try to tow everybody. To be honest,
I had one tell me one time that I couldn't. I was at one of those cabins, right? And first I was inside the cabin, and they came along and wanted money. I'm like, fuck you, I'm not paying you any money. And they said, okay, we have to leave the cabin. I said, fine. I went right outside. And then she came out and said, well, you can't put your tent up either. And I'm like, you know, and I didn't want to argue about it. I just said, fine, whatever. I'll just sleep without a fucking tent. You know, fuck you. Actually, what I did is I kind of said, okay, fine. I pulled out a joint and fucking lit it up, blew some smoke at her, basically telling her to go fuck yourself, you know. And I wasn't doing that. What I really was in my mind, I was kind of trying to, and looked at her in the way of, if you hadn't been such an asshole, you could have smoked the joint with me. That's actually more of what I was trying to get across.
Is that AP Trail or Green Mountains?
It was in the green. It was between Stowe and Sugar Bush.
Yeah, from what I understand, people have used some of the early laws to put up some of those ski resorts, and now some of those ski resorts are essentially squatters.
Yeah, Stowe. I think Stowe for sure is on that kind of land. Sugar Loaf in Maine, I believe, is on that kind of land. And I think Sugar Bush, all the way, not just Sugar Bush, but all the way. Are you familiar at all with that chain of ski resorts to Mad River Glen?
Yeah, I know Mad River Glen.
Yeah, all the way from Mad River Glen, like if you drive in to the left is Sugar Bush, but those next two, all three of those ski resorts, I believe, are on that kind of land.
Yeah. No, I mean, technically, if you don't use their ski lifts, you should be able to ski there all you want. You know,
And they actually do allow that. If you want to just walk up the mountain, you can use it for free. Yeah, they don't kick you off the mountain for not having a ticket unless you are using lifts. You're right.
Yeah, I've never.
Not many people do it, but yeah, you can walk up those mountains. You can you can go up there in the summertime, and you can walk up in the winter and ski down if you want. Sure.
I mean, generally speaking, Richard, I think that if we back things up in the States, back to where the corporate laws mean something a little more reasonable, when people talk about going backwards with Bernie Sanders and stuff like that, it is going backwards, but I think we've entered an area of complexity of these laws and the restriction of rights that is out of balance.
Assumes that you have a right to be, on land that's not yours, and that's not a right that I agree with. I don't agree that I don't believe that United States forestry land is land that you could run in from Mexico or Canada and stay on any more than just because you're an American citizen you get to stay on it. It's land that is owned by someone. You call it a corporation if you want, but it's owned by the United States government, and they get to decide who goes on it, how they go on it, at their discretion. You don't have an inalienable right to go on that land, in my mind, unless you can explain to me why I have a right to go on someone else's property just because I'm a citizen. Doesn't give me a right. That's why I use the fire department example. Just because I'm a member of a town doesn't give me a right to go sit in the town office all day without being there for business, have a reason to be there.
Well, I mean, there's people in libraries, of course, that sit there all day doing that don't have homes. But I mean,
if they're just sitting in the library and going to sleep, the librarian will come over and say, "I'm sorry, but this is for reading books. Either get out a book and read or get out. You can't go into the library and just go sleep on the couch. They don't allow that."
Yeah, I guess they have the right to ask you to leave. I don't know if it really says no sleeping. But
it does. Absolutely.
In the winter, they still open these places up. And I mean, there's something called a public landowner. I disagree with you. We all own that land. And yes, there might be some restrictions for responsibility on it that have to be imposed now that we have this ability to do more damage than the common monkey with tins of food and starting fires and everything. But I do believe in the public land concept, and it's more complicated than just someone else was here first and you're born here with no space, because even if you are born with space, you have to share things like rivers and streams that run through your property and then someone else's property.
That's right. For sure.
So I don't think there's any, I guess there's no way to get away from some sort of bottom line for competent citizenship.
So really, to me, it boils down to who sets the rules. That's my problem with all this. Is you make it sound like I guess I can actually go along with your idea that that I have a right to go there. I mean, obviously that's what it's for. It's for the citizens of the country and any guests they deem to also be able to go there to walk around and enjoy it. The problem I have is who sets the rules. And so where I kind of draw the line in this discussion now is that I don't think it's up to the individual to set the rules for that land just because, he's a citizen who has a right to be on the land. The collective of the citizens should be deciding, how that land should be used, not the individual, because it belongs to everybody. Right?
Sure. Yeah. And I would like the individuals to control that. And in a way, I appreciate these environmental protection laws as long as they keep the corporate and industrial exploitation out.
Well, but that's what it's for. It's also for corporate and industrial use.
the national lands, the national park lands and forest lands?
Yes, yes. In the first section that you posted, it talks about, you know, using timber and minerals and that kind of thing. It's,
you can't
you know,
take those off. It says you can't take those off for profit. You cannot.
Excuse me?
You're not. It says you're not allowed to remove those things for a profit.
No, you're not allowed to remove it unless you have a contract. People log. You can log on the forestry land with the forestry permission, can't you? That's the way I read it. That wasn't exactly what we were talking about, so I didn't read it especially carefully. But it seemed to me that's in the section where it talks about multiple use.
There's rotational cutting that's supposed to be for the purposes of you know, I don't know who ends up getting that.
Well, they make, it's the same as the grazing, right? People, they put bids out, and the highest bidder gets to graze on the land, and you know, they send the money back to the government pot. You know, the timber, they're gonna you know, auction off a certain section of land to let people selective cut, and those people are going to end up hopefully profiting off the lumber they cut, and money goes back into the general fund of the government, right? The leasing money.
Well, and is the premise that it's serving some purpose for the maintenance of the forest?
No, not necessarily. I think it's that they want to use these things. You know, they want to use them as a resource, not just. It's probably both. You know, I'm sure they pick the spot of land they want harvested based on, you know, renewable forest and making it enough timber to make it worth somebody's while to come in there and cut it all.
Well, then I guess I should be allowed to do that too if I want to go in there and the trees need cutting and someone gets to keep the wood. Me should keep the wood. Or some of it.
And if you sign a contract with them, you should be able to do that too. Absolutely. But it's you know, you said something that I sort of lost here because I'm so tired, but you know, so we agree that the collective should be setting the rules, not the individual.
Well, except I also think that if you go in and you act as the natural man and you're not capitalizing, that you should be free to do that, possibly without telling anybody. But maybe, you know, as
long as the collective owners agree with you and think that's a good idea. If the collective owners of the land don't want that, shouldn't you abide by what the collective owners of the land decide? Or do you as an individual get to say, you know, fuck the majority, I just want to do it my way?
Not, you know, you're right in terms above and beyond and exploiting things. But if it's you and your family, and your family has you know, is dying in the city, then you get a right to go try to fight to survive, and that would be the place to do it. Not in the areas of the private land, not in the areas of the commercial land, but on the national forestry.
What if the majority disagrees? What if the majority says, no, we don't want people going and permanently living in the forest? We don't think that's a good idea. The land belongs to everybody. It doesn't, you know, well, you seem to think as an individual, you get to override what the public wants to do with their land as just one voter.
As an individual, you get to do what's necessary to just survive. The simple things you need. Nothing, you know. It's pretty easy to define what it is you can do to get yourself sustenance and shelter, and you know, I think that's within reason, especially compared to what the corporates and the nationals have done to the earth.
You do have that right in all over the country and numerous different places, but we set aside perhaps some forests where we don't want people going in and doing that. We don't, you know, we don't have homestead lands anymore. We don't. I mean, maybe we should block off a section somewhere of whether it's Park Service land or like Anwar, for example. There's so much of that land. I wouldn't be against taking 1 million square acres and saying, okay, we're going to start homesteading again.
You can't.
But that's up to the collective.
I think you can homestead
individual.
in Alaska. You can homestead. People do still go up there and build cabins and then own the land eventually.
Well, but they do, but it's on a lottery system now. It used to be all you had to do was apply because they had so much land and you could go do it. Now you have to put your name in and they pick it out of a lottery and you may or may not get it. It's more
Yeah,
luck.
in Australia it was like that as well with Crown land. I think you can still do it. You can just apply for Crown land and then they give it to you, and you can put like a temporary home on that.
Yeah, in Alaska, I think you have to, it's pretty loose, fast and loose, but it basically says you have to improve the land every year for 5 years, and then it's yours.
Yeah, you got to show you're not, concentrating the heavy metals and destroying permanent damage to the land. I mean, and due to the nature of the Mercator map and stuff, both Alaska and Australia have huge amounts of land in the interior, like more than it appears on the map. I think if you manage to somehow survive in the center of Australia where it's so hard to survive.
We had a guy who was on the news.
It's not because of the Mercator map, it's because of the size of the land. But
no, if you look at
that, they found a guy, he had been living in the forest for like 40 years. He built himself a log cabin. And he was just in the mountains, living there for 40 years. Nobody knew, nothing. I can't remember I think they left him there. I don't think they. I mean, even if they kicked him out, what are they going to do? He could just go back and build another cabin.
Yeah. No, but the Richard, near the areas near the poles are compressed on the map, right?
No, it's actually the exact opposite of that. The Mercator map at the stuff that's compressed would be at the equator. Stuff gets bigger as you go away from the equator.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
Compressed in the center. I mean, it depends. I'm not.
You said the poles. It's actually the equator, not the poles. But anyway, yes, I know what you mean about the Mercator map.
Like northern Russia and Siberia and such. If you look on the map, there's actually more physical land up in the areas that are marked up off there than there is the same amount of land marked near the equator. So, all right. So you're saying that yes. Mexico is actually larger than it seems, for example?
No, I'm saying that the distortion increases as the latitude increases. The most exact size of land would be right along the equator.
Yeah. Okay.
Greenland, I guess. Yeah, Greenland's a big one. I was thinking Greenland, Iceland, but Greenland, for example, on a Mercator map, looks much, much bigger than it really is, and Mexico would look about the right size because that's near the equator. Or Central Africa might be a better example.
Yeah, and also I just want to add, I don't think it's good for societies to do that too much. Like, for example, I searched out the cheapest land available in Australia around me, and I found a lot, like a standard sized lot, about 5 hours away from me, like deep in the mountains, and then it opened up into valleys and shit. Fucking $5,000, and it was right next to a little fucking airport and a convenience store. And like the town was probably like 1,000 people, even less. It was probably about 30 houses, 30 lots. That was the whole town. $5,000 for that land. I mean, who can't afford that, man? Like, fucking hell. It's cheap as chips. You've got a shop there. You've got roads, a road going to your land. And then you can own that. And then you can fucking go into the bush there, wherever you want, fucking hang out. Do whatever you want, but at least you've got that little place and you're registered, and, the ambulance can get to you and those kinds of things. We can't just allow people willy-nilly to live wherever they want, unregistered, you know. It's just, it's not safe, really, for them or for us. You know, we need to know where people are for safety reasons.
I'd like to know where all the bears are, but I don't get to know where all the bears are, and bears get to go die stupid, just like a human should get to go die stupid if it...
No, it's not about really only like the safety of those that want to live you know, in nature. It's about the safety of the people. Like, what happens if, you know, I send my daughter, you know, fucking into the woods hiking, and then there's all these fucking cunts, you know, living out there. They've had kids, they're not registered. There's kids with mental illness. They'll fucking rape my daughter. This, nobody knows, is what I'm saying. We can't have that, you know. People, it's, you can't compare a bear and a person.
We don't want it.
You know?
We can have it. We don't want it, but it can happen. It does happen. Some people...
It does happen. Yeah, it does happen. Yeah.
I mean, the worst of the worst are going to go violate that anyway. I agree that there's... You don't want to encourage people to... I mean, we get that on the national parklands here all the time. We because there's no drinking age. So that's the first thing. And the groups I'm with actually don't drink at all. So what we do is when someone shows up with beers, we get like 40 guys, we surround them, everyone asks them for a beer, and everyone drinks about half a beer, and it's all gone.
Where is there no drinking age?
National parklands, national forest. You don't have to wear clothes. There's no drinking age. There's
Really?
most of the rights are back down to pretty much close to the constitutional rights.
Wow. It's amazing.
But so that's what we get exactly, people coming out to exploit that thing and to be the biggest idiots possible, and then, you know, die in the snow and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But we take care of them. That's the group ethic, rather than the law.
So even a miner by himself can drink out there? Is that right? Or
Yeah.
They don't need a guardian or something? Someone over the age? Or?
Oh, once you get noticed, you're gonna have a hard time getting your alcohol in and out of the forest. But nope, that's you just, and you know, as a result, there's a lot of violence and not much respect for people's possessions and stuff. I mean, those issues that you would think arise, they do arise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same as here, my friends went to a Aboriginal estate or whatever, a community out in the bush, and you know, he went there with an Aboriginal friend, and yeah, he reckons within 15 minutes he parked the car, went into the guy's little hut, whatever. He came out, the car was fucking robbed, man. They took all the change, and all the kids just took everything. There's no respect for the law.
So I have to find the exact like statute or whatever, but let me read you this. National forest rules state that nobody may camp longer than 14 days in a month-long period. That's the thing I told you before, is they're going to have, you can stay X number of days, and you can only stay X number of days within a certain period of time. So this site here I'm getting this from is basically an article about, you know, the title is Campers Staying Past the Limit on National Forest Land Could Get a Wake-Up Call. And this is near Flagstaff, Arizona, where a rising homeless population, you know, is coming along, and they're, you know, we're law-abiding citizen, we didn't mean to break any laws, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes down and says what I just said. So according to this website, you know, you can't just keep moving, you know, every so often, that you can't be there, you know, any longer than 14 days in a month, right? So
But
I don't
is that in
want
the
to
whole-
verify this is true, but that is along the lines of what I told you before, because I know how people operate, and I know the types of rules we need to keep people in line. It's the only reason
That's in the
I
same
off the
place.
cuff said that originally.
That says the same place, though. It talks about people not setting up homes and homes for
Yeah,
months.
but you can't be there. You can't be on the forest land for more than 14 days in a month, no matter what you're doing. You would have to go to a different national forest. So the bottom, it says, Forest Service officials say the past few years have seen more people trying to establish a home on national forest land So they're especially vigilant about keeping track of campers who stay past the 14-day limit.
Well, that's 2012. I'm not sure exactly what's up with that. All they make us do is we remove the structures. We pretty much restore
Right,
everything
so
back.
you found the same thing I found then.
Yeah, but then we just move down the trail, set up
Right.
again.
So that what I was trying to say before is that these rules are in place. The fact that it's not a problem where you are and they're not enforcing these rules doesn't mean the rules don't exist. Once there's a problem, then they come along and say, I'm sorry, homeless camp, you can only be here 14 days in the 30 days. But where you are is probably not a problem, so nobody cares. That doesn't mean the rule doesn't exist.
Well, all right. I mean, this is a tertiary site stating their interpretation of the law, and it may. I mean, you know, these statutes did get progressively added. I'm not sure about this one about the total in 1 month thing. Camping limit aims 2006. Camping limit aims to reduce squatters. Came up after the article you found.
Right. Yeah, and the reason is because, you know, I can see how, and I actually saw a show once where a guy had, I forget what it looks like a teepee, but it's not. And they did the same thing. They moved every couple of weeks. The forest, they cleaned up. They did everything right and correctly and good. So they kind of let them do it. And I knew when I watched that show that they were only letting them do it because they did such a good job of not harming the land. But the moment enough people harmed the land, then everybody would get fucked, you know?
I found took away my ability to read the article.
All right.
No, it's the site wants me to. Right. So there's in 2006, there's an article saying that there's a new 14-day limit for camping within a 45-day period.
Okay.
So that's really pretty recent.
That's in 2006?
16, sorry.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
So they may have extended it. What they did is they actually made it worse, right? It used to be 14 and 30. Now it's 14 and 45. So you'd stay even less than you used to be able to stay before. Right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know when the 30-day was enacted, but I don't agree with that, though. If you can manage to remove your camp and replace the site back to the...
I'm telling you, it's because they're not designed for people to live in the forest permanently. They're not intended for people to live there permanently. They're intended for people to come and visit and leave, not to spend their whole life living in the forest.
I think that's a new imposition, at least when it comes to
Oh, well, sure. Of course, it's a new imposition because, you know, the day after we made the forest, nobody would care. It wouldn't matter. There weren't homeless people throwing trash around and all the kind of fuck-ups that come in and wreck it for everybody else. You know, that's how we get laws, is by people fucking it up for everybody else. You know?
No, but I think that's the difference between the park and the forest, though. I think the park is protected and meant to be kept in that state, and the forest is made for people. I guess we'd have to go look up.
Yeah, I don't see. I think to me, that's a distinction without a difference. You know, whether you call it a park or whether you call it a forest is really only a matter of just having two different departments because there's so much of the land and just splitting up the management of it. They're both just pieces of land, and you wouldn't be allowed to live permanently on a park either, nor should you be, or at the bottom of the Washington Monument either. Nowhere is going to let you, you know, build a structure and live there permanently, or build a structure and move it every 5 days and stay there permanently either. It doesn't. The problem is that people aren't responsible enough for that to be a policy that would work. That's the problem.
Well, there's all three, right? Parks, monuments, and forests. Right. I don't think that's an arbitrary distinction. I think the parks are set aside to be they're naturalized parks, but the forests are for use by the people, and that, you know, it's in the national, the lands that the homesteading is still allowed. I mean, there's still.
What do you mean? You're saying homesteading is allowed on U.S. forest land? I don't think so.
Yeah, homesteading and squatting, and if you can maintain your, as many people would talking about trying to keep their cabins hidden long enough to have the rights to the land, and then they actually claim that the forestry comes along and burns their house down while they're not there. I've heard that directly, but anecdotally.
Sure.
3 or 4 times in my life.
Yeah, I've seen they had a show on TV where they burned a house down one time. Sure.
Oh, really?
And they should. They should, because people aren't supposed to be living there forever.
I guess we'd have to look into what was it, Roosevelt?
Did you read the squatting on public land one? By Shelter. That sounds like more pro squatting than anti squatting. So I asked.
No, I didn't. Could you post it? I'm getting a little tired. My ability to. I've been up all night now, I think. How long have I been awake? Good God.
I don't even know if it's any good, but I'll post it.
But you don't. Yeah, I don't know. The imposition of the corporate laws and the federal laws have gone way out of control. I think that there is the natural state that the United States was supposed to be in.
Why have the laws gotten out of control?
Lack of the freedom of information, and then laxity on the part of the people, both uninformed and lazy people.
You don't think it's because of the damage that people do when we don't have these laws in place? Really?
No, I don't. No, people don't do that much damage compared to corporations.
Industry. No, I'm not making comparisons. I'm saying we have these laws because people have caused damage. The fact they may cause less damage than somebody else is not an argument for allowing people to cause some damage. My question, or what I would ask you, is for an example where nobody has caused any problem at all, and we've come up with what you like to call a corp. I'm assuming you mean government when you say corporate, but give me an example of where nobody's caused any problem at all, and we've made up a law to prevent something.
To get people off land, and you don't think laws have been, you know, that there's been gerrymandering on the corporate, you know, all the lobbying and such has really distorted the laws against the individual rights. And it's not necessarily relative. I don't think you can. I think it is relevant, the fact that a single human, you know, with simple tools just can't do as much damage as they've done. But also, you just compare it to how much damage an individual human has always done, you know, like how much damage they were doing before.
Can you give me an example? You're saying that it's not because people cause problems and we create laws. Can you give me an example of a law we created because nobody created a problem at all, that we just made up a law before anybody created a problem? My contention is the reason laws come about is because people create enough problems so often that the public gets sick of it and says, okay, we need a law.
I think that was once true, but I mean, like when you're asking me to distinguish between the feds and the corporations, I think that's sailed. You know, I think that needs to be separated quite heavily. That's where it's gone wrong. You know, the old definition, the original definition of a corporation was the people that had rights to the discounts and shared resources of the state and government because they were coming together to fulfill a public project. We want to get together. We really need a bridge for our community. It's going to help everybody. We can use the resources. You know, there's already trains going back and forth. So we should get those subsidies in order to get the materials we need. and as a community, we can do that. That was never meant to be for privatization and for profit. It was meant to be for the people to incorporate together for projects for the good of the community.
People can still do that.
Yeah, but corporations can do that over people, over the rights of the people in the community. We have, you know.
I would say that I do kind of disagree that the eminent domain law now allows, you know, an excuse of our business is going to provide more revenue than your house, so we can take it. I think that was a bad legal decision a couple years back.
I mean, it's all full of all kinds of weird laws, like that managed to get enacted. Like there's actually laws in libraries that the Carnegie Mellon Foundations supported, where they throw out the old books after a certain amount of time. There's, you know, like there used to be all over the country weird little libraries with weird little ancient books that you could go research, and many of them have been like forced to swap them out for modern books, just like they were forced by these same powers to make the large regional high schools with 2,000 to 3,000 kids and had their textbooks forced upon them with some agenda. It was tried to be
and people don't have to go there. People don't have to go there if they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the only free one. It's the large regional high schools. Those are the only free.
Well, there you go, back again, complaining about stuff because it's not free.
Well, they pay taxes.
You don't want to use
taxes, and they're part of the citizen. You think it's an option to save up for private school for everybody? No,
they could homeschool. They could private school. There are other options in there besides going to a public school, which I don't. I would disagree that they're all forced on people. People wanted those things because it's more cost efficient, and they felt they would be better. The federal government didn't come in and say, you know, East Stansbury is required to have this school. Now build it with your taxpayer money. It didn't work. Doesn't work that way.
They did the public schools. They did destroy the smaller ones and consolidate them, and then they did forced busing.
The people you don't know did that on their own because not aware they wanted it that way. That busing has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're talking around in circles of 6 different things at once. Busing happened to move black kids into white areas, and it also, we started to build better, bigger schools that were to the advantage of the children, and so the range where you would come to is a little bit wider. So there are some kids on the outskirts of those areas who would have to ride a bus a little longer to get to a better school. It's not a bad, nefarious thing.
I think repairing the schools in the areas would have been the thing to do, and to not consolidate the curriculum, and to allow people. They took away the ability of you said to people, okay, they can choose to homeschool. They could also choose to create a school themselves, which is what they had done. And that school that they created together should have had all the advantages that the American corporations had.
The problem is you can't build, you know, if you have 20 schools, the local taxpayers can't pay for 20 soccer fields and 20 ice skating rinks and 20 whatever they want to have on their pool or have on their school. When you have one big school, you can provide more opportunities to children than having little small schools.
I never heard about people running out of. I mean, sure, you can share a soccer field. You can have a couple fields. Where I was, we shared with the local college. Even
yeah, but if it's far, you can't get the kids there and stuff during school hours and stuff. You know.
I don't think that local. I don't think there was ever this cost issue that Richard is talking about, where it's so expensive for the taxpayers to have a church house.
Of course, it's a cost issue, dude. That's like I say. In your mind, you want all this free stuff.
No, it was never I didn't say
unlimited
it's free.
Supply of money. Yes, it was a cost issue.
You're paying taxes. You're participating in the economy.
People consolidated the schools so that they would have better schools at a less expensive price. That's why it was done.
No, you need to look into the book Tragedy and Hope and the Reese Commission and what they tried to investigate about the influences behind the consolidation of the schools and the modification of the curriculum. They established, the U.S. government investigated itself and established that there was a conspiracy. They were just unable to determine exactly what the intent of the conspiracy was. But it's been unfolding ever since then. You know,
what's the name of it again?
Tragedy and Hope. It's the guy that also taught.
No, the name of the conspiracy. Tragedy and Hope, I'm assuming, is the name of a book, right?
Yeah, by Carroll Quigley. He was also a teacher. And the Reese Commission was the one that looked into.
That's what I was looking for. R-E-E-S-E?
C-E. I believe. Let's see. The main investigator is.
And this is in 1954, the Reese Commission, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Guy who's who is it? Gosh, what's his name? John Taylor Gatto is the primary current researcher. He was a kind of